So, the story of the boys, as we know it, starts with two kids discussing who would win in a fight between the Deep and Translucent. Just then, a large van transporting money, which has been hijacked, speeds towards the kids. Just before the van hits the kids, it is stopped by Queen Maeve, who fights off the assailants with Homelander's assistance. News agencies report that Homelander and Queen Maeve never miss a chance at publicity, while Homelander is taking photographs with nearby pedestrians. Meanwhile, at Bryman Audio, Huey Campbell tries to talk to his manager. However, he is shut down immediately. Soon, he meets with his girlfriend Robin. After leaving the shop, Robin asks if he has asked his manager for a raise. Huey jokes that he couldn't just kick his door down like Homelander. As Robin and Huey are discussing living together, Robin suddenly explodes, having been in A-Train's direct path while he was running. Huey is left on the roadside, covered in Robin's blood and holding her severed hands. After stopping for a moment, covered in blood, A-Train, with a red duffel bag slung across his chest and muttering something about how he can't stop, zooms away. Meanwhile, Starlight auditions for The Seven, where she partakes in an interview and shows her ability to project blinding white light from her body. Meanwhile, Huey watches the news, in which A-Train states that he regrets the death of Robin, telling the whole world that she stepped out into the middle of the street while he was chasing bank robbers. A representative of Vought International arrives at his door, revealing that Vought would like to offer him $45,000 if he signs a non-disclosure agreement. He asks for time to think about it and has visions of himself attacking the representative. Meanwhile, Starlight receives a call from Vought, announcing that she has been accepted to join the Seven. Huey attempts to pull a lawsuit case together against A-Train, but is shot down by his father, who tries to convince him to take the deal as they could use the money, but Huey refuses. In New York, Vought International hosts its 2019 shareholder event, in which the Deep announces the retirement of Lamplighter and introduces Starlight. Vought also premieres its plans for the future, in which a superhero will guard every city. At the Seven's headquarters, the Deep shows Starlight around. She says that she's standing where she always wanted to be, and even reveals that she once had a crush on the Deep as a kid. Prompted by this, the Deep removes his pants, which horrifies Starlight. The Deep, however, reveals that oral sex with him is the price she must pay to remain a member of the Seven. In order to persuade her, he blackmails her, saying that he is second in command of the Seven and will tell Homelander that she attacked him if she does not agree. At work, Huey is watching Translucent's interview on the Jimmy Fallon show when Billy Butcher enters. He introduces himself as FBI, saying that he has heard Huey's story and they should talk. Billy says that the Supes kill hundreds of people a year, but the public love the Supes, which is why nobody cares what they get up to. Billy brings Huey to an undercover super bar, saying that this is the only place Supes can be themselves. Billy shows Huey CCTV footage of A-Train at the bar, laughing about Robin's death, which encourages him to join Billy. Then, Billy hands Huey the police log from the night of Robin's death, which shows no bank alarms, hinting that A-Train is hiding something. Billy tells Huey to call Vought and tell them he will sign the NDA, but only if A-Train is there in person, as Billy plans for Huey to plant a bug in Seven Tower, but he refuses. At Vought Industries, Madeline Stillwell offers the mayor of Baltimore one of Vaught's Supes, Nubian Prince. She tries to barter a $300 million per year deal, but the mayor laughs, offering $200 million. The mayor claims that he knows about the existence of something called Compound V, and is willing to expose the truth if Madeline doesn't agree. Over the phone, Starlight attempts to tell her mother about what happened with the Deep, but just cries instead. Sitting on the same park bench, this gets Huey's attention, and they both say they're having bad days. Starlight admits that her life isn't what she thought it would be, while Huey reminisces about his time with Robin. Then, Huey meets again with Billy, declaring that he's in on the deal. Huey calls Vought, agreeing to take the deal, but only if A-Train apologizes in person. Meanwhile, at Seven Tower, Homelander holds a meeting. The Deep mocks Starlight, but she is able to stand her ground, insisting that she is in the Seven to stay. Billy takes Huey to Seven Tower, instructing him on how to plant the bug. Huey is hesitant and scared, but he is able to get past the security in 7 Tower and meets with A-Train. Huey follows Billy's instructions, but unbeknownst to him, he is witnessed by Translucent dropping the bug on the floor in the toilet. Then he signs the NDA and is able to plant the bug. Billy drops Huey back off at work, saying that he has done everything he needs him for at the moment. Madeline calls Steve, saying that she's willing to take $230 million for Nubian Prince and asks if he'll be discreet about the Compound V rumors. Then, Translucent confronts Huey at Bryman Audio about the bug planted in 7 Tower by assaulting and threatening him. However, Huey is saved by Billy, who smashes through the storefront, running Translucent over with a car. Billy and Translucent fight, eventually leading to Huey electrocuting Translucent. Meanwhile, on his flight, Steve and his son notice Homelander flying alongside their jet. His son questions whether they are friends, and just then, Homelander uses his heat vision to destroy the plane, killing everyone on board. Following their fight with Translucent, Billy and Huey evade the police, taking Translucent's body with them, stuffed in the trunk of the car. Billy and Huey are shocked to find that Translucent is not dead, but banging around in the trunk of their car. Huey wants to let Translucent go, but Billy is able to convince him otherwise, stating that Huey will never get revenge for Robin. Billy takes Huey to see Frenchie, who questions why Billy has come to see him, given that he owes him $40,000. Billy shows Translucent to Frenchie, who worries that Homelander could be on his way. Meanwhile, A-Train visits a cancer-stricken teen boy in hospital, which is fed onto Facebook via livestream. The boy is unhappy because he asked to meet Translucent, not A-Train. At 7 Tower, Madeline Stillwell and Ashley Barrett discuss Translucent's location. Ashley says that she does not know his location, and he hasn't triggered any of the motion sensors in the building. Starlight introduces herself to Black Noir, but he walks on without interacting. Ashley asks how she is settling in and tells her that she is being sent on her first patrol. Starlight says that she prefers to do her own investigations and is shocked to find that the Deep is also on the patrol with her. After covering the walls and ceiling with foil, Frenchie, Billy, and Huey trap Translucent in an electrified cage in the basement of a boarded-up restaurant. Frenchie is annoyed that Billy has burdened him with this problem and says that Translucent's skin is impenetrable, making him hard to kill. Huey is shocked to hear that they're thinking of killing Translucent. Meanwhile, Homelander questions Madeline as to whether she has located Translucent, offering to search for him himself. Stillwell says that is not necessary. She asks whether Homelander heard about the mayor of Baltimore, questioning whether he had anything to do with the incident. Homelander says that he heard the mayor blackmailing her. Huey receives numerous missed calls from his father. When he returns the calls, his father expresses concerns about what happened at the AV store. Huey's father asks him to come home and be sensible. Homelander and the Deep meet at 7 Tower. During the meeting, Homelander questions why the Deep ran to Stillwell and revealed what he saw on the mayor's plane. Homelander uses the meeting as a pseudo-threat, telling the Deep that the conversation should never happen again, to which the Deep fearfully agrees. Frenchie works on creating a bullet coated in the same material as Translucent's skin, in hopes that it will be enough to penetrate his skin and kill him. Billy fires the shot. However, it bounces off his skin and Translucent laughs, cheerfully claiming that he's invincible and it is only a matter of time until the Seven come for him. Unnoticed, the bullet damaged the foil shielding on the ceiling. At 7 Tower, due to the damaged foil, the team are able to find Translucent's locator within a 10-block area. Madeline sends a security team, telling them to search door to door if necessary. At the docks, the Deep and Starlight investigate the case handed to them by Ashley. The Deep is angry that he has been handed low-level cases, believing that he could be so much more. Starlight lashes out over what happened the previous night. Starlight reveals that she found out that he is not number 2 in the 7, but is laughed at by everyone and is just the fish guy. The two apprehend a series of thugs smuggling pills through the docks, ironically hidden in Homelander toys, and Vought uses the bust as a publicity opportunity, which shocks and annoys Starlight. Meanwhile, Billy waits for Susan Rayner, deputy director of the CIA, congratulating her on the promotion and asking to see some of her files, including Translucent. Rayner questions why he wants to see the file, and Billy admits that he's looking to kill him and perhaps could find something in the files. Rayner, however, says that the files are buried and even she will not dig them up. Huey questions Translucent on Robin's death. He asks where A-Train was going in such a rush, saying that he knows they were tight. Frenchie notices a truck pull up and grabs his gun. Translucent says that he can read Huey, who is scared and in over his head. Despite the truck driving off, Vought security forces poke around the building but leave before noticing Frenchie and the others. Meanwhile, at a Vought fundraiser, Madeline meets with the senator, who says that nobody will put superheroes into national defense. He says that nobody wants to outsource as America runs on weapons. He does, however, say that he'd be scared to have Homelander on the front line and expresses concern that the heroes belong to Madeline. Walking home late at night, Starlight saves a woman from being raped by two men, beating them up. Unbeknownst to her, the scene is being video recorded. Frenchie tries, unsuccessfully, to kill Translucent. He tries to offer Huey MDMA and LSD to calm him, which Huey refuses. Frenchie reveals that he works in quite a few fields, but is a gun runner by trade. He says that for the most part, he tries to figure out ways to kill Supes. Meanwhile, the senator is tricked into having sex with the shapeshifter doppelganger, who takes advantage of him, taking incriminating photographs after shifting into a male. Ashley questions Starlight over the footage of her beating up the men, revealing that she has blown her secret identity. Ashley says that there is no woman in the video, and all the video shows is Starlight beating up two innocent men. Ashley says that Starlight must have meetings with legal and crisis management following the outburst. Stillwell meets with the senator, revealing two photographs from the previous night. Stillwell says that she knows he had sex with Doppelganger, and she plans to use the photographs to blackmail the senator about national defense. Homelander goes to Crime Analytics, asking if they have found Translucent. He is concerned because Translucent has been missing for over 24 hours. Homelander expresses his wish to find Translucent himself, but Annika is concerned that he needs Stillwell's approval. However, with a push from Homelander, she reveals Translucent's last known position. Meanwhile, Frenchie realizes that Translucent has a tough shell, like a turtle, but his insides are like those of a normal human. After rendering him unconscious, Frenchie reveals that he has stuck a bomb in his rectum that can be triggered by a remote detonator. Translucent begs for his life, saying that he knows information about where A-Train was going the night of Robin's death. He reveals information about Popclaw, A-Train's girlfriend. Frenchie then notices that Homelander is nearby, which frightens Huey. Frenchie warns that pulling the detonator will alert Homelander to their location, so Frenchie goes to distract Homelander, while Translucent escapes from his cage but is threatened by Huey. Billy remotely triggers an explosion at Frenchie's place nearby, drawing Homelander to investigate. In the basement, fearing Translucent would wreck everything, Huey presses the detonator, blowing Translucent to pieces. So, Huey is shocked after killing Translucent and washes himself off. Meanwhile, Billy cleans up his remains with the help of Frenchie, who burns Huey's clothes, and both promise to take care of the situation caused by the death of Translucent. Frenchie also agrees to go home with Huey to get more clothes. At Seven Tower, Starlight meets with Madeline Stillwell and her team to discuss the date rape video. Stillwell reveals that the victim saw the video on YouTube and came forward, gaining her popularity and publicity. The team then unveils a new uniform that's highly revealing, designed specifically for Starlight, but she refuses, believing it is not a reflection of her. Stillwell says that she cannot be a member of the Seven if she does not wear the outfit. At home, Huey is disgusted at the amount of super merchandise he owns. In a rage, he tears the posters off the wall and throws the merchandise around the room before being brought back to reality by a photograph of Robin. Huey's father confronts him, questioning where he is going with a packed bag. Huey and his father argue, and Huey leaves with Frenchie, apologizing to his father. At the juvenile detention center, Billy visits Mother's Milk, an old friend of his, much to MM's surprise. MM questions his motives as Billy invites him back to join the boys. MM says that he is happy and making a difference with the JDC. Billy reveals that they killed Translucent and their plans to bring down the Seven and perhaps even Vought International, which is enough to convince Meanwhile, Homelander expresses the fear that Translucent could be dead given the failure of the tracking chip, but Stillwell sarcastically retorts that his diamond skin will keep him safe. Stillwell hands Homelander talking points for the military contract, but he laughs, retorting that he can sell himself to the military without help. In the back of a box van, Billy, Frenchie, and Huey stalk Popclaw's apartment. They plan to sneak into Popclaw's apartment to hack into her electronic devices and spy on her. They pose as Bryman audio workers who are upgrading the internet routers in the building. Huey is able to relay her webcam and other cameras in the apartment back to Frenchie in the surveillance van. On the way out, Huey literally runs into A-Train, who does not recognize him, much to Huey's surprise. Meanwhile, Homelander says he is worried about Translucent, while he and Maeve deal with a sniper in a high-rise building. Homelander kills the sniper without hesitation as he expresses his hatred for Stillwell and Mr. Edgar, the owner of Vought. In order to make the killing appear to be self-defense, Maeve agrees to let Homelander shoot the assault rifle into her chest several times. Queen Maeve is also able to convince Homelander to make an appearance at A-Train's fastest man in the world race while being concerned about Homelander's ruthless killing. Butcher and the boys watch Popclaw and A-Train through the hacked computer connection. A-Train frets about losing the race tomorrow, revealing that Stillwell told him he is out of the Seven if he loses. A-Train considers using Compound V when Popclaw says that the last time he used the substance he ran through Robin. Popclaw is furious with A-Train after he says that she cannot go to the race with him tomorrow. She wants their relationship to be publicly known, but that requires Stillwell's permission, which A-Train refuses to request. Butcher decides that they must steal some of the substance for Frenchie to analyze. The boys then arrive at A-Train's race. Mother's Milk and Huey talk about Translucent's death, with Huey admitting that killing Translucent felt good. Compares the rush Huey felt to the rush A-Train feels when he takes Compound V, which unsettles Huey. At the race, Queen Maeve interviews with a reporter, saying that if the people want the Seven in the military, they should order Congress to put them there. Meanwhile, Frenchie, with Huey distracting Starlight, is able to sneak into A-Train's changing room looking for the Compound V. However, he is unable to find it. When Shockwave arrives at the race, A-Train darts away to take the Compound V and is back in a blink. Watching Popclaw on the CCTV, notices something and leaves the race before it begins, and with help from the V, A-Train wins the race. So, in the surveillance van outside of Popclaw's apartment, watches as Popclaw eyes a vial of the Compound V. Annoyed by A-Train's remarks after the race, Popclaw injects the V, and Billy's gang watches as she works out, squat pressing huge barbells. Popclaw's landlord knocks at the door, asking for her rent. Inviting him in, Popclaw and he partake in sexual roleplay, which eventually leads to her crushing his head while sitting on it. Billy and Frenchie rush in to use this to blackmail Popclaw into telling them everything she knows about Compound V. Meanwhile, Homelander and the Deep show Stillwell a box containing Translucent's remains. The Deep reveals a spray-painted message inside the lid of the box, which reads, "Coming for you." Billy Butcher dreams of memories spent with his late wife, Becca. In the flashback, Billy remembers a time in which his wife tried to convince him to see a concert with her. They were happy and had a dog. Billy awakes from the dream, warming breakfast and watching a CCTV recording from January 24th, 2012. Butcher meets with Susan Rayner, telling her that he can stop the Supes from getting into the military. Rayner says that she doesn't care, and Billy shows Susan images of Popclaw and A-Train injecting Compound V. However, she dismisses him given the lack of a sample. Susan tells Billy that she'll reward him if he can get proof. Rayner says that she hasn't seen Translucent for a while, hinting that she knows what he did. Billy calls Popclaw, revealing that they haven't found anything, but have been watching the noodle shop for weeks. Popclaw admits that the Compound V comes from somewhere in the vicinity as A-Train comes back with the noodles after every V run. Outside the noodle shop, Mother's Milk, Huey and Frenchie catch a worker of the noodle shop pick up a package dropped on the floor. Following the guy into the backs of a supermarket, the trio find a warehouse full of boxes. At the back of the warehouse, in a barred room, they find a girl watching TV. They free the girl, despite warnings from the men not to, and she handily kills most of her captors before the last put a gun in his mouth to commit suicide. Meanwhile, The Deep, in a session with his therapist, worries that he is a nobody and one of the weakest members of The Seven. His therapist, however, is able to convince him otherwise and embrace his membership with The Seven as meaningful. Butcher arrives while the boys are searching the warehouse for clues. Mother's Milk finds a small syringe of compound V. They discover that A-Train is running the V to the warehouse, and the assailants are dosing Kimiko Miyashiro with it. Billy questions Huey's involvement with Starlight, encouraging him to go on a date with her and hack her phone. Meanwhile, Stillwell discusses Translucent's death and the idea that the world should not find out about the death. Her team discusses the idea of telling the world that he is on a classified mission, which Stillwell agrees with. Stillwell receives a call that a flight has been hijacked over the mid-Atlantic. She scrambles Homelander and Queen Maeve to save the plane, admitting that Congress will not deny a deal if they bring the passengers back alive. Frenchie meets with Cherie to stock up on weapons to use against Kimiko. She tells Frenchie that she misses him, but hands him Holophane, a chemical that will be able to knock Kimiko out. A-Train arrives at the warehouse behind the supermarket, however, is surprised to find his associates being loaded into the back of ambulances in body bags. At Seven Tower, The Deep reveals to Stillwell that he has found a mission he feels is important: shine a light on the mistreatment of dolphins at Oceanland theme park. Stillwell counters that they can't renege on the Oceanland promotion deal, but is ultimately persuaded to accept. A-Train asks Popclaw who she told about Compound V, as she was the only one who knew. Popclaw insists that she didn't tell anyone and expresses her anger about A-Train's speech post-race, where he indicated that he was single and available. Despite continued asking, Popclaw maintains that she didn't tell anyone. A-Train tells her to pack a bag so that they can leave for a while. Meanwhile, Starlight and Huey go bowling on their date. As they talk, Huey is unsettled with visions of killing Translucent. Huey then asks what Translucent is like, which surprises Starlight, and she says that he's a creep, but also mentions that he has a son, which unsettles Huey. Homelander and Queen Maeve are able to kill all of the hijackers in the airplane and are applauded by the passengers. However, when they enter the cockpit, they find an additional hijacker has already killed the co-pilot. In the scuffle, confusion, and tight confines, the terrorist kills the pilot. Homelander kills the terrorist with his laser eyes and inadvertently destroys the plane controls. Knowing that neither of them knows how to fly a plane, Maeve suggests Homelander use his flying ability to control the plane. However, Homelander rejects her suggestion as unfeasible. Maeve suggests Homelander flies each passenger down individually, but he says that will take too long. He's ready to abandon the rescue effort, but Maeve begs that they take the children, but Homelander refuses to leave witnesses. Finally, he convinces Maeve to leave the plane with him, allowing all of the passengers to die. Meanwhile, the boys arrive at a crime scene where Kimiko has killed the Mama-san matron at the nail salon. A-Train is also at the scene, and the boys leave. Mother's Milk worries that A-Train could have recognized him, given that they met the previous week. They worry that A-Train will find Kimiko first, considering his speed. Frenchie, however, realizes that Kimiko is trying to get home, having found evidence of a subway schedule. Mother's Milk reveals that he has a friend that is a postman and has tracked where the Compound V came from. They arrive at the subway, splitting up in an attempt to find Kimiko. Eventually, Frenchie finds Kimiko watching TV, hidden in the back of an electronics store. Kimiko is initially wary of Frenchie, but he is trying to convince her to trust him, but a scare from the TV causes her to bolt. On their date, Starlight reveals her dating history. The two reminisce on their high school relationships, and Starlight jokingly asks Huey if he is bothered with Starlight's abilities. Huey begins having visions of Robin, his dead girlfriend. Then, while Starlight is in the restroom, Huey takes the opportunity to hack her phone. At the subway, Frenchie, and Billy search for Kimiko. Mother's Milk questions what happened with Lamplighter and Mallory, angrily retorting that Frenchie didn't follow orders and now people are dead. Butcher tells a story of the music group the Spice Girls as an analogy to illustrate that the boys are more successful as a team than individually. Meanwhile, the Deep rescues a dolphin from Oceanland and has a man-dolphin conversation with it while he's driving, which turns sexual. He is soon roadblocked by the police, causing the dolphin to be ejected through the windshield, landing in the road, and be run over by a truck. Just as Butcher and the boys find Kimiko, she is caught by A-Train, and the two fight until A-Train gets the upper hand. Butcher is ready to walk away, but Frenchie alerts the crowd to the previously unseen A-Train, causing a fan mob. To prevent a media disaster, A-Train stops the beating and Kimiko is able to escape. Billy then gasses Kimiko, knocking her and Frenchie out. On the beach where the plane wreckage is washing ashore, Queen Maeve grieves over the lives they could not save, and Homelander gives a speech to the news crews about how the passengers didn't have to die. The Seven arrived after the plane went down because they are not in the military chain of command, and Stillwell watches as Homelander demands that they be allowed into the military. Popclaw hides under the radar while smoking marijuana. A-Train zips in to reveal that Stillwell has allowed them to go public about their relationship. The only condition is that Popclaw admits whom she told about Compound V. Popclaw reveals that she didn't know their names but describes them to A-Train. After telling her he loves her, A-Train injects her with multiple doses of heroin, killing her. A-Train reveals to Homelander at Seven Tower that Popclaw has died, following a heroin overdose. Homelander questions A-Train's use of Compound V, with A-Train trying to convince Homelander that he isn't using it anymore, and promises to find Kimiko on a prompt from Homelander. Frenchie cooks a meal for Kimiko, trying to engage in conversation with her. Kimiko, however, is unwilling to talk and lunges at Frenchie, who's only saved by the chains that bind her. At the Believe Expo, Starlight and Huey get to know each other. Starlight introduces Huey to her mother, who disdainfully questions if Huey works at Vought International. Then Ezekiel makes an appearance on stage. Mother's Milk and Billy Butcher survey the area for CCTV and security. Billy shows Huey a video from the club where Ezekiel was engaging in sexual acts with males, and tells Huey that he must blackmail Ezekiel into revealing information about Compound V. While Homelander gives a remembrance speech about those they couldn't save aboard Flight 37, Queen Maeve is angered and leaves the speech early. Homelander tries to convince her that they do what they have to. However, Maeve is hesitant to agree. Huey, MM, and Billy engage in a conversation about beliefs. While talking to her mom, Starlight questions why she had to lie about sex in the teen roundtable session. Starlight expresses concern that she's uncomfortable. Either the festival has changed or she's changed. Huey asks Starlight if she can get him a special pass to see Ezekiel, and she agrees. Homelander arrives at the festival, asking to see Madeline. However, Ashley reveals that she isn't at the festival. Instantly, Homelander flies away, confronting Madeline, questioning the speech he has been given. Stillwell, however, admits that the speech is geared towards getting the Seven into the military, which annoys Homelander, who is conscious of the fact that her son, Teddy Stillwell, is getting in his way. Meanwhile, Billy is visibly angry as he goes to visit Rachel, his wife's sister. He is angry that they have purchased a headstone for Becca, despite never having found her body. However, Rachel admits that her mother wants somewhere to talk to her daughter. Billy becomes visibly angry. However, Rachel retorts that they all miss her. Distraught after Popclaw's death, A-Train watches a movie of hers and then switches to their sex tape. However, he is shocked to find that it has been overwritten by footage of Popclaw accidentally killing her landlord. A-Train is able to see Butcher and Frenchie blackmailing her and takes a still of Frenchie's face to Vought Crime Analytics. They reveal to A-Train and Black Noir that Frenchie is a man with 12 aliases and 34 addresses. A-Train tells Trevor, the tech guy, not to get involved. At Ezekiel's meet, Homelander questions how Huey knows Starlight. They hold a baptizing, in which Homelander uses this opportunity to hold Huey underwater for an extended period of time, presumably as a threat. Once Homelander leaves, Huey tries to show Ezekiel the video. However, he finds his phone has suffered water damage and no longer works. Huey improvises, pretending to be one of the men Ezekiel had sex with that night. Initially, Ezekiel denies and tries to choke Huey. He only stops when Huey tells him that there is a video ready to be posted online. Huey blackmails Ezekiel into revealing everything he knows about Compound V. Huey reveals what he has found to Mother's Milk, including the location of the latest shipment, and reveals the information to Butcher. Homelander gives a speech at the end of the festival, however, much to Stillwell's dismay, who watches from Seven Tower. Homelander strays from the script, admitting that he answers to a higher power and will not walk the wait for Congress's approval to protect America. Distraught and experiencing guilt over the deaths of those aboard Flight 37, Maeve visits her ex-girlfriend. She breaks down, admitting that she can no longer deal with the guilt and has returned to drinking. Elena asks her to explain, however Maeve tries to kiss her. After Elena refuses, Maeve realizes it was a bad idea and leaves suddenly. Meanwhile, Cherie calls Frenchie, revealing that Black Noir was just outside of her apartment. Frenchie asks which location they have, to which she responds that they more than likely have them all. At the hospital, Mother's Milk and Butcher try to intercept the shipment of Compound V. They receive a call from Frenchie, who admits that he has been made and needs to take off. Butcher tells him to leave Kimiko, however, he is wary, worrying about what Black Noir and A-Train will do if they find her. Frenchie talks with Kimiko, who seems scared at the prospect of being left behind. Frenchie unchains Kimiko, who leaves quickly. On stage, Starlight reads from a teleprompter script. The script talks about her acceptance of God, however she becomes visibly annoyed and asks for the music to be stopped. She reveals to the audience that she doesn't believe the script she's been given. Stillwell and the Deep watch from Seven Tower, surprised by Starlight's actions. She reveals to the audience the sexual assault that occurred between her and the Deep, but does not reveal his name. At the hospital, Butcher and find the hospital injecting newborns with Compound V through an intravenous line. The eyes of the baby in the incubator emit energy, and they are shocked to find that soups are engineered in a lab, not born the way they are. Meanwhile, Starlight and Huey enter into a heated debate, with Starlight admitting that she didn't appreciate him using her to get to Ezekiel. Huey apologizes, admitting that his girlfriend died recently and he is just looking for a way out. Butcher extracts some of the Compound V, but they are interrupted by men shooting at them with assault rifles. But Billy grabs the baby and uses his laser eyes to kill all of the men. On CCTV, Stillwell notices Homelander watching her through the wall. She invites him in, mockingly asking if he is lonely. She warns about the speech he gave and has him lie on the couch, suckling her breast. Meanwhile, on the run, Frenchie encounters Black Noir, however he is saved by Kimiko. The two fight, and Black Noir is able to get the upper hand, leaving Kimiko lying in the road in a near-death state. Frenchie returns to find Kimiko, apparently dead. Suddenly she breathes and her body starts healing itself. A Vought Industries promotional video titled Super in America is shown to Courtney. The video introduces the Seven, showing kind acts they have done with underprivileged people. Courtney, however, is very critical of the video, saying that it's supposed to be for support of their presence in the military. While Starlight and Huey participate at the local pub quiz, Huey's friend Anthony joins them. Anthony reveals certain stories from Huey's past to Starlight, much to his embarrassment. Anthony admits he's been worried about Huey since Robin's death. However, Huey deflects, saying that he wanted a fresh start. Mother's Milk reveals to the boys information he has found about shipments of Compound V. He reveals that Samaritan's Embrace is a company bankrolled by Vought Industries that ships the compound to hospitals around the US. He reveals that no soup is born, simply injected with Compound V as a baby. Butcher admits that they have many charges to take to Raynor. At Seven Towers, Starlight approaches Stillwell's office just as she hears the last words of Ashley Barrett being fired due to Starlight's Believe Expo breakdown. Ashley tells Starlight that it was her idea to book Starlight for the Believe Expo because it would play to her base. Starlight meets with Stillwell, who expresses her anger that Starlight isn't following the rules, perhaps that she has been influenced by Queen Maeve's reckless history. Starlight refuses to obey Stillwell, demanding that she be allowed to save people and follow her own rules. Stillwell contemplates firing Starlight. However, Starlight threatens that firing her will tank Vought Industries' stock price, considering that she just proclaimed she was the victim of a sexual assault. She also threatens to reveal that it was the Deep who harassed her and points out how she's aware she's not the first victim, precisely because Stillwell keeps covering for him. Should Stillwell fire Starlight, she will sink as well. Angry but with no other options, she dismisses Starlight without further threat. Meanwhile, the Deep and A-Train film their respective parts of the promotional video. A-Train is questioned about knowing Popclaw, however, he replies that he hasn't seen her in years. Queen Maeve runs into Starlight at Seven Tower, and Starlight admits that she was a fan of Maeve as a child, wanting to be exactly like her, having memorized much of her autobiography. Now she assumes that it was more likely written for marketing. Somewhere else, Frenchie questions what Mother's Milk really thinks about Kimiko, and reveals that they could use the help of Mesmer to get information from Kimiko. MM initially refuses, but Frenchie is able to get him to agree to the idea. Butcher and Huey attend an ACDS meeting, a meeting between people who have experienced collateral damage incidents with Supes, and Butcher uses this to convince Huey to think differently of Starlight. At Seven Tower, Stillwell tells the Deep he is going to take a break from the Seven and make a public apology before people begin speaking out about the Deep. He expresses his dismay, but films the apology video nevertheless, admitting to the public that he thought that the incident with Starlight was consensual. Mother's Milk meets with Mesmer. He reveals that he is aware that Mesmer uses his telepathic skills to profit from insider trading. He allows Mesmer to look inside his head, revealing who he is. MM takes Mesmer to see Cleo, his estranged daughter, and he promises to be in her life more. He is saddened when she reveals she doesn't really know him. Mesmer agrees to the deal of being allowed to see Cleo 1 hour per month, supervised, in exchange for him reading Kimiko Miyashiro's mind. Meanwhile, Billy reveals information about his late wife to Huey, including the fact that Homelander raped her. Billy reveals that nobody has seen her in 8 years. Butcher theorizes that either Homelander killed her or she killed herself. Billy uses the talk to remind Huey who his friends are and who his enemies are. Homelander meets with Stillwell to explain his dismay about the promotional video in which he pretended that he was visiting the house he grew up in. Stillwell uses Homelander's sexual attraction to her to convince him to finish the promotional video. Mesmer attempts to read Kimiko's mind, however it brings up such raw emotional memories, and she inadvertently breaks his wrist. Mesmer insists that the session is off, however MM is able to convince him to stay. Billy calls MM, questioning his whereabouts. He initially lies, but Billy calls him on it, revealing that his phone is being tracked. Elena shows up at the filming of Maeve's promotional video. Maeve tries to have a moment alone with Eleanor, but the film crew secretly keeps recording. Eleanor questions why she hasn't replied to her messages. Maeve insists that she was just looking for a hookup, however Elena can tell that she is lying. Butcher arrives at Mesmer's house declaring that they have to kill Mesmer now, but MM refuses. Trying again to read Kimiko, Mesmer reveals that Kimiko was a terrorist before being captured. This saddens Frenchie, who refuses to believe it. Huey questions why Vought would give Compound 5 to terrorists, with Butcher deducing that Vought is crafting supervillains to justify getting the Seven into the military. After pleading by Frenchie, Kimiko shows Mesmer memories from her past. When she was young, her parents were killed, she and her brother were kidnapped, forced to be soldiers, and now she wants to save her brother. Butcher reveals what he has found to Raina, teasing her with a sample of Compound V. Billy issues a list of demands, including that his team receive a salary, an office, and her word that Homelander be prosecuted. Raina admits that she can meet all of his demands, with the exception of prosecuting Homelander. Raina fears that pushing Homelander too hard will result in thousands of deaths. Frenchie reveals that he is there for Kimiko, but is willing to take her to the airport if it is what she wants. However, Kimiko holds Frenchie's hand, admitting that she wants to stay with him. Butcher arrives, revealing that Raina has refused to authorize his demands. He believes that they don't need Raina, but can take down Vought themselves. Later, Mesmer meets with Homelander, revealing spy cam photos of Huey and the boys. He says that all he wants is a good word at Vought. However, Homelander leaves without promising him anything. Huey and Starlight sit at a bar, talking about the possibility of leaving New York together. The two kiss, but are interrupted by Butcher, who introduces himself to Starlight. Butcher questions what Translucent is up to with the aim of making Huey uncomfortable and wary of Starlight. In a flashback 8 years ago, Butcher and his wife Becca attend Vought International's Christmas party. Homelander thanks Becca for handling his Twitter takeover, much to Billy's chagrin. Back in the present, Butcher watches as Huey and Starlight meet at a hotel. At the hotel, Starlight and Huey have sex. Afterward, Starlight questions why they are at a hotel, not at his place. Huey confesses that it would perhaps be humiliating for her to meet his father. Huey admits to quitting his job after Robin's death. Meanwhile, the Deep checks himself into an apartment in Sandusky, following orders from Stillwell. The Deep questions if he'll be fighting crime, however, is dismayed to find the lack of crime in the town. The Deep begins trying to write his memoir titled Deeper, a Memoir. On the track, A-Train is told to quit taking Compound V, with his coach revealing that his bone density is suffering, along with many other vital measurements. A-Train receives a message from Homelander to meet at Seven Tower. When he arrives, Homelander criticizes the Seven for having been unreliable and sloppy recently. Homelander shows the Seven a picture of Huey, declaring that Huey is responsible for the death of Translucent, blackmailing Mesmer, Ezekiel, and Popclaw. He throws it over to A-Train, who doesn't recognize Huey, until the photo is zoomed out to show that it was from when they shook hands in that very room. Homelander also says that Huey is targeting the Seven following Robin's death. Homelander begins to suspect Starlight for any possible involvement in aiding the boys, but Maeve is able to calm an angry Homelander, promising to take responsibility for Starlight and her future actions. Huey says that what the boys are doing with Vought needs to stop, however. Butcher forces him to admit that his change of heart is due to Starlight. Billy becomes angry after Huey mentions Becca. Huey receives a phone call from A-Train, who threatens his father, which leads to the rest of the boys figuring out they've been caught out thanks to Mesmer. At his house, A-Train discovers that Huey was once a fan of the Seven and mocks Huey that it was stupid to come alone. Huey is able to negotiate his father's release from A-Train in exchange for a dose of Compound V. The two begin to debate over who was worse, with A-Train expressing his anger at Popclaw's death, retorting that Robin's death was accidental, whereas Huey blackmailing Popclaw was on purpose. In a flash, Kimiko arrives, breaking A-Train's leg with a crowbar, with Huey sarcastically remarking that it would have been stupid to come alone. The two then leave A-Train on the floor with a shattered leg. At their home, Monique and Mother's Milk argue about MM's involvement with Butcher, with Monique eventually agreeing to evacuate to a safe location. After Stillwell finishes a call with the senator, she reveals to Homelander that they only need 3 votes to get the Seven into the military. Homelander questions if Stillwell remembers Becca Butcher, revealing that she is missing, presumed dead. Homelander asks what happened to her, however Stillwell says that she presumed Becca just quit. At a subway station, Butcher confronts a scared Mesmer, who pleads he did what he did out of fear of Homelander. Butcher physically attacks Mesmer, which allows him to read his thoughts. Mesmer attempts to convince Butcher that he can help him find his wife, but Butcher repeatedly smashes his head into a sink, killing him. In a flashback, a CIA official, Grace Mallory, shows Butcher footage of Becca entering Homelander's office, then leaving, disheveled after being alone for 3 hours. Mallory then recruits Butcher, and later the two would go on to found the boys. Starlight receives a call from Huey, but declines after Maeve asks who it is. Maeve reveals about her history with Elena, revealing that caring about people is a weakness. Maeve admits that the only way to truly be bulletproof is to cut people loose. Frenchie attempts to find a secure location for the boys for the night, while Huey attempts to contact Starlight. Butcher introduces himself to Huey's father and MM's daughter, but is met with distaste from Monique, who slaps him across the face. MM confronts Butcher about the deal with Raina, remarking that the only reason Butcher didn't take the deal was due to Homelander. MM begs Billy to call and take Raina's deal for his family's sake. Meanwhile, Homelander questions Jonah Vogelbaum, a former scientist at Vought, about Rebecca Butcher. Jonah reveals that 8 years ago, Becca came to Stillwell after conceiving Homelander's child, which baffles Homelander, who is under the impression he was infertile. He reveals that both Becca and the child died on the delivery table due to the amount of blood loss. Jonah apologizes for how Homelander turned out, admitting that he was his greatest failure. Raina and the CIA arrive at Frenchie's hideout, wherein she promises to keep MM's family and the rest of the boys safe. Monique tells MM that she never wants to see him again, while he says goodbye to his child. Despite Homelander being out of the deal, Billy takes the deal with Raina, handing over a vial of Compound V. Raina tells Stillwell that Vought has been caught out lying to the public about soups and how they're created. Stillwell refuses to acknowledge Kimiko's existence, but is surprised when Raina tells her to pull the military deal. Raina remarks that they go back to being superheroes, or the CIA goes public and tanks Vought shares. Raina is pulled from the meeting early to be shown footage of a SEAL team assault ending with a super terrorist, Naquib, blowing up their operatives and walking away unscathed. Huey meets with Starlight in the park, with Starlight questioning if Huey killed Translucent. Starlight is upset that Huey has been using her to get back at A-Train, grabbing Huey and attempting to turn him into the police. Huey is scared that he will be killed. However, Starlight admits Vought will want to drag out the trial. Then Starlight is surprised and confused when Huey reveals the existence of Compound V. Just then, Billy arrives and shoots Starlight in the chest twice with a sniper rifle, allowing Huey to run away. In Syria, US troops approach a drug warehouse under cover of darkness when Homelander arrives. Homelander tells the troops to go for a break as he will handle the search. Inside the building, Homelander uses his laser eyes to kill the assailants. He exits the building with a vial of Compound V. In a meeting with Stillwell, US Secretary of Defense Robert Singer questions how a Syrian gang has gotten hold of Vaught's compound, which she stonewalls. However, Stillwell admits that given the power of the soups, Compound V is the only way to beat them. On a call with Raina, she reveals to Butcher that the CIA has decided to keep the existence of Compound V classified to keep Vought happy. Mother's Milk tries to sell the story to a newspaper, but gets turned down. Raina reveals that the boys are wanted fugitives now. Mother's Milk and Frenchie decide they need to split up and go their separate ways, but Billy has other ideas. Starlight returns home, reminiscing about her father. She questions her mother about her knowledge of Compound V and what it does. Initially, her mother denies knowing about its existence, but eventually reveals that Vought promised that Starlight would have an extraordinary life as a result of the experiments. This angers Starlight, who is upset that she never got to choose who she was. Much to Starlight's dismay, her mother reveals that her father left because he no longer agreed with what they had done. The Deep and Jeff drink and the Deep questions when he ships out. However, Jeff congenially reveals that Vought doesn't want the Deep to leave Sandusky, and that the marketing department has created new promotional material based on him staying there. Meanwhile, Billy introduces Huey to Grace Mallory, the founder of the boys. Billy reveals that the boys are back together. However, Grace refuses to help them, but Billy says that she owes him. Frenchie, Kimiko, and Mother's Milk are ambushed in their motel room by commandos. Kimiko initially fights back and tries to escape, but is tranquilized by one of the assailants. Grace refuses to help the boys, revealing that the promise between them ended when the lamplighter incinerated her grandchildren. Grace admits that she regrets training Butcher and aiming him at Homelander. Grace agrees to reveal that Homelander and Stillwell have a complicated relationship, and perhaps she may know his weakness. With this, Billy agrees not to return in the future. Leaving the hospital, A-Train goes shopping, but is upset looking at Shockwave promotional material. A-Train gets into a heated discussion with the security guard who racially profiles him. The security guard does not at first believe he is A-Train, but is quickly corrected by public onlookers, recording the interaction on their phones. Billy and Huey drive past the motel room, with Billy revealing that the boys are gone, taken by some black ops unit, most likely working on behalf of Vought. Huey begs to go back and save the boys, but Billy remarks that Frenchie and MM would want them to finish the job. Huey realizes that all Billy cares about is Homelander, agreeing that Grace was right about Billy. With this, Billy leaves Huey behind. Upset about Vaught's decision to leave him behind, the Deep shaves his head and his body, berating himself for being an idiot. Huey finds Starlight listening to the choir at an otherwise empty church, asking for her help, much to her shock. Starlight believes he wants to lie to her, but Huey admits that he wants to tell Starlight the truth, using the tale of Naquib to convince her. Huey wants Starlight to use her security clearance to find Naquib. Starlight refuses, questioning why she would ever help him. Huey remarks that Vought is doing evil things and it's Starlight's job, as a superhero, to stop them. Huey admits that he was spiraling out of control until Starlight took him bowling. A-Train is exerting himself, pulling a locomotive like a sled dog. Nathan arrives and tells him that he should be resting, but A-Train says that he is healed. Nathan surmises that A-Train is using Compound V again to heal quicker. A-Train denies it, but Nathan refuses to believe him and abandons him. Black Noir plays the piano at a Vought fundraiser. Mr. Edgar, Vought CEO, arrives at the fundraiser, giving Stillwell a bonus and moving her down to his floor. He reveals that someone needs to run Vought when he moves to Belize, which excites Stillwell. Starlight vomits in the toilets, followed by Maeve, who reveals that her arm never healed correctly when she broke all of the bones in her arm, providing evidence that Vaught's marketing didn't fabricate that story. Maeve reveals that she was like Starlight once and really did want to make a difference until Vought corrupted her into the woman she is today. She tells Starlight to stay as the annoying, goody, two-shoes asshole that she is. Starlight takes her advice and decides to help Huey, and the gang takes down Vought. Homelander confronts Stillwell over his findings from Vogelbaum. Homelander admits that he planned for Naquib to show up just as they needed to sway the Congress into letting them in the military. Homelander admits that he and A-Train used Compound V to supercharge terrorists, much to Stillwell's shock. Homelander says that there are soups that only the Seven can fight all over the globe now. Stillwell takes Homelander to her office, where the two have sex, but Homelander climaxes very quickly and apologizes for it. Frenchie and Mother's Milk are seen locked in a cage, with Frenchie questioning why didn't reveal he had a daughter. Mem admits that he wanted her to be clean, but now he'll probably never see her again. Frenchie worries that Kimiko is in trouble, and Mem tries to console him. Stillwell reveals to Homelander that Edgar offered her his job in the future, but Homelander worries whether Madeline will still be there for him on the day-to-day. They both promise to not keep any more secrets from one another. Stillwell apologizes for not telling Homelander about his child, as she wanted to spare him the pain. Huey goes back to the motel and is immediately subdued by the commandos. They throw Huey into the cage with Frenchie and who question him about Butcher's whereabouts. Huey relays that Butcher has gone after Homelander while he has come to rescue them. Frenchie is grateful, but astounded by the utter futility of the idea. Huey then reveals that he got himself captured on purpose, and there is a wire lodged in his orthodontic retainer that Frenchie can use to pick the lock. As a result, they are able to escape and overpower the guards. Later, Stillwell arrives at home looking for her son and the nanny, but finds Billy waiting for her in the dark. Madeline asks what Butcher wants, with him questioning Homelander's weakness. She denies any, but Billy tells her that Stillwell is Homelander's weakness, which surprises her. Frenchie and the boys look for Kimiko, finding her strapped to a hospital bed when the guards arrive and shoot at them. Frenchie is shot in the shoulder, passing Huey the gun while saves Kimiko. is able to save Kimiko, however she is severely weakened. Huey runs out of bullets and the boys are trapped behind a barricade. As they prepare to be taken, a blinding light takes out their assailants. As Starlight escorts them away, they are confronted by A-Train. Huey sends Frenchie, and Kimiko on, while he and Starlight confront A-Train. Starlight attempts to use her abilities on A-Train, however, he is barely able to outrun them. A-Train admits that he is the one who killed Popclaw, but it was Huey's fault. Just as A-Train moves to attack Huey, he suffers a heart attack and collapses. Huey tries to resuscitate A-Train, but Starlight takes over, saying that Homelander will never stop coming after him and tells Huey to run as Vought is on the way. Butcher has an array of C4 explosives strapped to Stillwell when Homelander arrives. However, Homelander brings Teddy, believing that Butcher would not put the child in danger. Homelander pushes Butcher, boasting about the sex he had with Becca. Homelander questions Billy's endgame, to which he reveals he just wants to hurt Homelander. Questioning if Butcher has any proof that Homelander killed his wife, Billy goes quiet, with Homelander questioning Stillwell about Becca and his baby. Homelander says that Vogelbaum and Stillwell's stories had some discrepancies, so he went back to Vogelbaum, getting the real truth out of him, that Vought put Becca and her child into witness protection for the past 8 years. Stillwell admits that she is scared of Homelander, which he appreciates, kissing her one last time before shooting his laser vision through her eyes and head. Just then, Butcher decides to release the trigger, detonating the explosives. However, Butcher awakes on a lawn to see Homelander standing over him. Butcher is shocked to see Becca alive, with a child. Homelander asks if the child knows who he is. He says he doesn't, and Homelander tells him that he is his father. In a meeting, Stan Edgar discusses the incorporation of the Supes into the military. Meanwhile, Homelander holds the funeral for Translucent, along with Translucent's family and his son Maverick. Homelander lies to the nation that Translucent was killed by a Supe terrorist named El Diablo, and that he will kill them to avenge his death. The boys have gone into hiding with associates of Frenchie's. Frenchie and Cherie deal with the gang business, MM works as a medic to treat wounds, and Huey as a supply man. Huey leaves lying that he's going on a supply run and instead secretly goes to meet Starlight. Huey hands Annie a paper with a photo of a Supe named Gecko on it, hinting that he is the target for a secret mission and Annie needs to track him down. The boys watch the news and see their faces still splashed across the media as wanted. They brainstorm what to do. Run, find Compound Fire and tell the media, or stay and hide. Butcher is missing and is being blamed for Madeline Stillwell's murder, leaving Mother's Milk as their leader for the time being. Homelander walks around Madeline's empty office and chugs a bottle of her breast milk. Ashley walks in on him awkwardly and thanks him for helping her get Madeline's old job. She says that they found him a new hero to replace Translucent. She introduces him to Blind Spot, a blind superhero, and explains that he fits a specific demographic that will really serve the Seven's image. Homelander greets him and tells him he's a hero moments before bashing his ears in and asking Ashley why on earth he would allow a cripple to be a part of the Seven. He threatens Ashley to tell him every single thing that happens in her job and explains that he is the boss, not her. Starlight tracks down Gecko. She records him in a hotel room, letting someone hack his arm off in exchange for money. His arm regenerates instantly, demonstrating his superpower. One of Frenchie's friends comes into their hideout, bloody and in pain. Frenchie finds out that he and a few others were not only smuggling drugs but also humans, including a Supe terrorist, who ended up attacking him before running away. Frenchie, Huey, and Mother's Milk debate over who to tell about the Supe terrorist, but it's difficult since they're wanted. Huey suggests Annie and admits he's been seeing her secretly. The Deep wakes up at Eagle the Archer's home, where he tells the Deep, "We've all been there, rock bottom." A friend, aka therapist, named Carol is there, but she says she's more like this teacher than a therapist. They corner him into a therapy session and give him a religious book from the Church of the Collective. Annie finds Gecko at a diner and chats him up as if it's a casual run-in. She asks him for a favor, to go into the labs on 67th to steal her a sample of Compound V. He pretends not to know what that is at first. He tells her it's impossible to get, but she threatens him and says he has to, or if not, she'll reveal that he is an S&M hooker. Queen Maeve and Homelander shoot a commercial for their Save America campaign about defeating the Supe villains. Stormfront comes to the set and introduces herself as the newest member of the Seven, shocking Ashley, Homelander, and Maeve. Stormfront explains that the guys on Arwe 82, aka Stan Edgar, made it happen. Stormfront livestreams the whole meeting to her fans and Homelander fakes excitement but walks away in a huff. The boys meet with Susan Rayner, who asks them if they know where Butcher is and they say no. She updates them on their families. They give her a description of the super terrorist. Rayner thinks that Vought International is behind everything, that it's a fucking coup from the inside. All of a sudden, her head explodes and the boys, covered in blood, scream and run into their van. They theorize that Vought actually killed her because she knew too much. Homelander pays a visit to Stan Edgar, where he asks to be consulted on the new additions to the Seven. Homelander threatens Stan that he might move on when his contract is up. Stan asks him what he knows about Frederick Vought, the founder of Vought. Stan explains that Homelander is under the impression that they are a superhero company when in fact they are a pharmaceutical company, and Homelander is not their most valuable asset, but Compound V is. He accuses him of distributing Compound V around the world to terrorists and says that Homelander is not as significant as he thinks he is. Frustrated, Homelander flies to Becca's house to see his son. Starlight calls Huey, excited to burn those fuckers down, and says that Gecko is getting her the compound thief and that they should decide which news outlet to reach out to. Soon, Butcher enters the boys' hideout, surprising Huey and everyone else. In present day, the boys are in their hideout. Kimiko is desperately writing the word boy, but Frenchie doesn't understand what she's trying to say. Homelander plays ball with his son Ryan. Becca calls for him to go inside and do his homework. He leaves, and Homelander argues with Becca because he thinks he should learn how to use his powers better, but Becca just wants him to be normal. Carol works with the Deep in therapy, helping him, but is having difficulty reaching him. Eagle gives the Deep a special drink made from shrooms, telling him this is his journey to take. Grace Mallory attends Susan Rayner's funeral. After leaving, she goes to her car and sees Butcher sitting in the back seat. She tells him that she's going to turn him into the feds, but he stops her by telling her he knows how to find out who killed Rayner. He says if they find the Soupy terrorist, they'll be one step closer to finding out. On shrooms, the Deep has a heart-to-heart with his gills. He admits his embarrassment about his own body. The gills tell him he violates and humiliates women as a defense mechanism for his own insecurity. The Deep screams and tries to escape the room, but Eagle and Carol don't open the door. Starlight and Stormfront give a series of interviews, getting a repeat of questions about whether female heroes make better heroes than men. Stormfront says that the job shouldn't matter if a guy or a girl does it. Starlight gets asked about A-Train's secret mission, and she says she prays for him every night. Then, she gets a surprise when A-Train pops out and says that he's back. Starlight is nervous and shocked, knowing that he could blow her cover at any moment. In private, Starlight reminds A-Train that she saved him with CPR, hoping that he won't tell anyone about her helping Huey escape. She asks if he's told anyone, and he just walks away. Butcher comes back and says that Mallory told him that if they get the super terrorist, she'll tell the FBI to wipe their records clean. On drugs, the Deep talks more with his gills, who tell him that he deserves to be loved. They ask him to take a real look. He does, and then he apologizes to them, claiming that he is the ugly one. Later, Gecko tracks down Starlight and gives her a sample of Compound V. She shoves it into a backpack pocket and A-Train runs over, questioning what she is hiding. The boys go to a costume shop in an attempt to track down the super terrorist. Kimiko sees one of the members of the Shining Light Liberation Army, the terrorist group who kidnapped her. She rips his head off. Then she goes and sees a man and hugs and embraces him. Frenchie realizes that boy meant her brother. Her brother is the super terrorist. Butcher ignores Frenchie's realization and attempts to shoot Kimiko's brother. However, Huey intervenes and tackles Butcher. Kimiko's brother, Kenji, notices the boys and uses his powers to neutralize them. Kimiko then joins him as the two run away from the store. The boys, except for Butcher, agree to let Kimiko be with her brother even though he is a terrorist. Butcher reveals that Becca is alive and was with a little boy who is a spitting image of Homelander. He tells them that he needs their help to find her and to get her out of there. He admits that the deal with Mallory is that if he finds the super terrorist for her, she'll find Becca for him. Kimiko has a heart-to-heart with her brother. She explains what happened to her and that they made her into a monster. Her brother explains that they did the same to him that they did to her. Starlight texts Huey that she got the Compound Vibe and A-Train shows up and finds her with it. A-Train threatens to tell Homelander everything, and she tells him that he's not going to do anything because he killed Popclaw. She has proof to show that it wasn't suicide. They have a standoff and A-Train leaves. Kimiko's brother tells her that the Shining Light Liberation Army stands up for injustice, that the Americans killed their entire village and they're the bad ones. Kimiko begs him to stay and run with her, but he refuses and they get into a fight. Kenji attempts to run, but Kimiko puts him in a chokehold and he passes out. The boys arrive in a van and put Kenji into the back of the van. Butcher punches Huey and tells him if he comes between him and his missus again, he will kill him. The boys are on a yacht sailing in the ocean. Butcher calls Grace and assures her that the target is 3 miles offshore on the boat and reminds her of their deal. Billy says that if Kimiko changes allegiances, he'll neutralize her. Kimiko sits with her brother and tells him that she will protect him if needed. He asks her to free him and she tears up and says sorry. Becca makes breakfast for her son and Homelander imposes on the meal, to her discontent. A writer pitches the plot of the new A Dawn of the Seven movie, and Stormfront verbally rips him apart for his sexist portrayals of women. Ashley runs away after reading a worrying message on her phone. She talks to Stan Edgar and insists that they must tell Homelander, but Edgar tells her that Homelander isn't as important as this crisis. So, the news about Compound V hits the news stations. Starlight watches the news happily, and A-Train comes to confront her, knowing that she is up to something. The Deep opens up to Eagle and Carol about his life of hearing the fish, lobsters, and other sea animals beg for their lives in restaurants and pet stores. He's devastated when he hears the news that he wasn't born that way. Black Noir also cries in a corner after hearing the news. Huey is elated after seeing that they actually did something. Mother's Milk jumps in joy when seeing what Huey did, along with the rest of the group. Butcher reminds them to stop celebrating and keep their eyes on the ball because they still have a lot at stake. Meanwhile, Homelander takes Ryan to jump off of a house, assuring him that he can fly. Ryan tells him he doesn't want to, so Homelander pushes him off and he falls to the ground. Becca rushes out to help him, and Homelander insists that he's fine because he's his son. He tells Becca she isn't raising him the right way and he grabs her wrist. Ryan intervenes and pushes him to the ground, telling him to get his hands off of her. His eyes glow red as he screams at Homelander to go away and to leave them alone. Frenchie talks to Kimiko's brother and asks him to help him understand her. He explains that her sign language is their own special language. Frenchie asks to learn, but he refuses. So, Frenchie walks out and leaves a bag of chips and a soda. A police helicopter approaches that boat and yells out that they are all under arrest. Kimiko's brother has used a shard of metal from the can to get his hand free and sends the helicopter down to crash with his powers. The group runs, but Huey is distraught seeing that the people in the helicopter might have died. Stan Edgar tells the Seven that they are a team and that they will focus on the priority, the super terrorist, and taking him down. Homelander tells the team that he doesn't mind if Fort burns to the ground. The Seven, however, are like his real family, and they must stick together. The boys are being chased in the yacht by sharks directed by the Deep, who races alongside the boat on a sperm whale. They approach the shore where the Deep has positioned the whale to block their escape route. Butcher drives his boat directly into the whale, penetrating its side and throwing the Deep to the ground and knocking him out. The boys retreat into a sewer outlet, making their way through the tunnels to find the FBI hideout. Meanwhile, the Seven walk up to the beach to find the Deep crying over the dead whale, Lucy. A-Train runs ahead to find the boys, but he gets dizzy as his heart starts pounding to hard and needs to stop. Starlight goes down a different tunnel and runs into Huey. She knocks him down with her light as Homelander comes up behind her and commands her to kill him to prove her allegiance. But Butcher calls out to Homelander to distract him. Just then, Kenji steps forward and causes the tunnel to collapse, bringing cement and cars down onto Homelander. He turns to his sister and then jumps through the hole to escape. Kimiko runs after him and begs him to stop. The two siblings make it to the rooftops where Kenji tries to escape, however Kimiko is caught by Stormfront. About to kill her, Kenji intervenes, saving Kimiko's life. Stormfront then incapacitates Kimiko and viciously breaks Kenji's wrists. Stormfront then kills Kimiko's brother, calling him a fucking yellow bastard, and heartlessly tells him to open his eyes because she likes to see the light go out of her victims. A horrified and distraught Kimiko sees her brother die, but has to run because Homelander has returned. Stan Edgar holds a press conference, denying knowledge of Compound V and claims to do a full investigation on it. He blames it on Madeline Stillwell and vows to get to the bottom of it. He introduces Stormfront as the savior of the day and the crowd goes wild in admiration, while a disgruntled Homelander glares hatefully at Stormfront. At the same time, the boys stare at the TV screen in their hideout, all bloody and enraged. Frenchie comforts Kimiko and tells her it wasn't her fault. He kisses her and she pushes him off. Homelander flies to a house where Madeline Stillwell is there to greet him. She sticks her fingers in his mouth and calls him a good boy. Meanwhile, Butcher tells Grace Mallory that they hit a dead end on the hunt for Susan Rayner's murderer. Mallory tells him that she found Becca in a Vought facility, and she gives him the location, even though he didn't hold up his end of the deal. Homelander complains to Madeline about Stormfront saving the day and claims that she is the new face of the Seven. She comforts him, then all of a sudden turns into Doppelganger. Homelander demands him to change back and he obliges. At their hideout, Butcher plans to break into the Vought compound where Becca is living. Mother's Milk tells him it's a suicide mission, but Butcher does not agree. Mother's Milk is put in charge, and to ease his mind, Butcher advises that Mallory will be able to help find his family provided he finds liberty for her. In the elevator, Homelander seizes Starlight by the throat, telling that he only spared her life when she didn't kill Huey because Maeve convinced him not to. As he holds her by the neck and threatens to pierce her abdomen, she declares that she hates Huey for breaking her heart but will not murder people. When asked if he thinks she's lying, Homelander lets her go and exits the elevator, mumbling she isn't lying. Starlight meets up with Huey to talk about what to do next, but Huey gets a phone call and has to run off. Starlight breaks down crying and says she can't do this anymore. Huey brings her to Mother's Milk and asks if she can come along on their mission to track down Liberty. A-Train sees Shockwave in the hallway and freaks out and runs to Ashley's office. She tells him he's there for an event, but Homelander walks in and tells him that he's out and that they're going in another direction. Homelander tells him that he can't run anymore and that it was really hard for him to decide this, but that it's happening. Huey, Mother's Milk, and Starlight go on a road trip to track down Liberty. They witness a car accident, but they won't let Starlight go to help because they have to keep a low profile. Meanwhile, Butcher scales across a wall in the pursuit of his wife. Butcher tracks down Becca. She apologizes that she couldn't tell him anything, and he tells her that she didn't do anything wrong. Becca explains that Homelander only spared Butcher one time because she said that if he hurt you, she would kill herself in front of Ryan. Billy said that he would get her out of there the same way that he came in, but Becca said that Ryan can't climb that fence. She said that he has some powers, but that she isn't raising him like a soup. She tells him that a garbage truck comes every day and that maybe she can sneak out that way. Homelander and Maeve give a TV interview. Homelander outs Maeve as a strong, proud lesbian, much to Maeve's shock and horror. After the interview, she demands to know where Elena is. Maeve tells him the truth that she loves Eleanor, and Homelander wishes them luck. Stormfront leads an anti-Vought protest. Kimiko goes to the protest and walks towards Stormfront, but Frenchie stops her and tells her that she won't survive. Huey, and Annie go to Liberty's door, but it's an African-American woman who answers the door. She warns them not to say anything because if Liberty finds out, she'll kill her. Huey explains that nobody's seen Liberty since 1979. The woman disagrees and shows a newspaper article and points to a photo of Stormfront, saying that she is Liberty. Meanwhile, Becca tells Billy she's not leaving because she doesn't think Billy really wants Ryan to come with her. Billy says that he is a billion-dollar piece of Vought property and that they won't be able to disappear unless it's just the two of them. Billy calls Ryan a soup freak, and Becca is horrified. She admits that she went to Vought when she found out she was pregnant, and not Billy, because she knew he'd go on a rampage to get revenge. Meanwhile, The Deep and Carol interview a series of women about love and relationships. The Deep tells Carol to choose one of the girls, Gianna, because she is a clear winner. Carol tells him that Cassandra is the real winner and that she's his wife. The Deep seems upset because he liked Gianna a lot more, but Carol explains that Cassandra will help his image more to get back into the Seven. Homelander visits Madeline, aka Doppelganger, again. Homelander seems upset and tells her that he doesn't need anyone but himself. Doppelganger morphs into Homelander. He tells Homelander that he's the best and that he's gonna suck him off, but Homelander tells Doppelganger he's pathetic and kills him by snapping his neck. Later, Maeve shoots a Dawn of the Seven scene where she comes out as gay. She angrily walks away after the scene cuts. She confronts Homelander about Elena and asks him to let it go if she agrees to stop seeing her. Ashley shows Homelander footage of him accidentally killing someone in a distant village where he went to kill a soup. She shows him televised protests against him, declaring him a war criminal, and Homelander storms off angrily. Meanwhile, Billy shows up at his Aunt Judy's house. She tells him that his father is ill and that his parents are flying to see him. But Billy demands to see his boy, aka his dog, Terror. The Deep and Cassandra give an interview about their new relationship and how he's a changed man, now a part of the Church of the Collective. Huey and MM also show up at Aunt Judy's house, much to Billy's surprise. They confront him about Becca and disappearing. Billy leaves and then notices Black Noir on a neighboring rooftop. He comes back in and closes up the house. MM calls the firefighters for a gas leak to slow down Black Noir, knowing he won't want to kill them in front of other people. Meanwhile, the marketing team meets with Maeve and Eleanor to review their new looks and how they will come out as a proud couple to the world. They try to give Eleanor a more masculine look, but Eleanor emphasizes that she has no interest in being in a public relationship and leaves. Maeve runs after Elena after she storms off and tells her that she needs to play along. Otherwise, Homelander will track her down. She promises Elena that she will bring Homelander down, but that she needs to play along for the time being. On the other hand, Butcher tries to save the rest by leaving to face Black Noir by himself, but Huey and MM won't let him do that. Kimiko meets up with Cherie in a church, and Frenchie finds out that Cherie was giving her hits to take out. Frenchie tries to tell her that this is not the way to get over her brother's death, but she pushes him away and tells him that his death is her fault. He doesn't understand what she's saying and walks away, frustrated. The Deep is now the face of the Church of the Collective and is in a commercial about being your best self. A-Train is watching the commercial on a tablet on the set of Dawn of the 7 Inches with obvious disgust. Congresswoman Newman leads a rally against Homelander, and he surprises them all by showing up unexpectedly. He addresses the crowd and tells them that innocents getting killed in war happens from time to time. The crowd gets upset and goes wild. Homelander gets upset and imagines massacring the protest crowd with his laser eyes, but he resists and flies away. Homelander loses it and goes to Stormfront for help, and she makes some memes to help him gain some popularity back. Judy takes MM, Huey, Billy down to a locked, protected room in her house to hide from Black Noir. When Noir throws gas into the basement, they escape out a side door, but Butcher stays behind to face Black Noir himself. MM runs back in to help Butcher, but gets stabbed. Huey runs in as well, but gets knocked to the ground. While Noir is strangling Butcher, he threatens to release photos of Becca and Homelander's son. Black Noir's phone rings, and it is Stan Edgar. Black Noir passes the phone to Butcher, and Edgar says he'll call off Noir if the photos are never released, and Butcher agrees. Maeve goes to the Deep and offers to be the person who assures the public that he isn't a piece of shit, because she wants him back in the 7 to help her. Meanwhile, Starlight goes through Stormfront's things, trying to find clues about Liberty. Stormfront catches her, but Annie pretends like she was in a trailer to confront her about her mother. Stormfront threatens Starlight about her releasing the news about Compound V. Starlight threatens to tell the world that Stormfront used to be Liberty, but just then, Homelander walks in and interrupts their conversation. Homelander thanks Stormfront for helping him get better ratings. He tells her he owes her one. Then Stormfront and Homelander kiss and start to playfully fight. She tells him to laser her breasts and he obliges. She doesn't get hurt from it, to his surprise. They push each other around and have sex, floating mid-air. In a flashback from 8 years ago, Frenchie, Cherie, and Jay smoke and plan to rob a bank. In present day, Starlight talks to Frenchie and Huey about taking her chip out, fearing repercussions from Stormfront. The process is a success, with Frenchie successfully removing the chip from her neck. Meanwhile, Stormfront and Homelander catch a robber running away. They flirt while debating what to do to the criminal. While Stormfront strokes Homelander's dick through his pants, Homelander crushes the man's head. Starlight goes to the boys' hideout and tells them about how she broke into Stormfront's laptop and saw dozens of emails between her and Stan Edgar, specifically about how they're close to a breakthrough at the Sage Grove Center. In another flashback, Grace Mallory interrogates an arrested Frenchie at a police station. She confronts him about his armed robbery charges, which will land him 25 years in prison. Impressed with his engineering ability to counter a Soup's power, she offers an alternative to work for her instead. Frenchie denies the offer, so Grace makes him a new one. She threatens to lock up his friends, Cherie and Jay, at a super maximum security prison unless he works for her. So, he resists but ultimately agrees. At the Sage Grove Center, the boys meet out front and put on nurse scrubs to sneak in. Starlight makes a hole in the fence for them to get in, while Butcher, Starlight, and Huey agree to stake out the place. Billy then aims his rifle at Starlight's head, but ultimately refuses to pull the trigger again. Starlight then incites an argument with Butcher by asking why he hates Soup so much. She then incites him further by comparing him to Homelander, but before the two can continue, they are interrupted by the arrival of Stormfront, who flies into the center. Frenchie, and Kimiko kill a guard and break into the surveillance room. There, they see video screens monitoring residents, aka Soups, in the making. The moment Stormfront leaves, Huey radios for them to escape now. They attempt to walk out, but Frenchie and Lamplighter make eye contact. Frenchie jumps up and pushes him away, and he accidentally lights the wall on fire, letting one prisoner, Cindy, out of her cell. Lamplighter tries to plead with Cindy to let him live, while the boys try to convince her they're on her side. But before Cindy can choose who to believe, a guard arrives and shoots Cindy in the back. Infuriated, she crushes him with her mind. She then opens all the cell doors, letting all the super prisoners out. The boys and Lamplighter run and lock themselves back in the control room. Lamplighter threatens to burn them, but tells him that Kimiko is a super and that will just piss her off. The acid vomit patient arrives and knocks Lamplighter down, almost melting his face. However, Kimiko saves Lamplighter from the patient, and so he agrees to let them come to the front to get the access code to leave the facility. An escaped patient attacks Starlight, Butcher, and Huey with a shockwave like EMP blast generated from his chest. Butcher kills the man as the two check on Huey, who is hurt badly. So, they leave the other members behind in the facility and rush to get Huey medical help. Homelander, feeling abandoned by Stormfront, burns down his trailer in anger. Finally, Stormfront shows up and Homelander accuses her of lying. In a flashback from 5 years ago, shows Frenchie an engagement ring and tells him and Grace that he plans to propose. Lamplighter shows up, and Grace tells Lamplighter that he will tell them everything that happens at the tower, seemingly threatening him with some photos. Suspicious of him, Mallory orders Frenchie to follow Lamplighter. Frenchie agrees to track Lamplighter and races after him. At the Sage Grove Center, Lamplighter tells Frenchie that he didn't know that children were in the bed when he set it on fire. He meant to burn Grace Mallory, not them. Lamplighter asks Frenchie why he didn't stop him, since he was following him that night. In another flashback, Cherie calls Frenchie and tells him that Jay is dying from an overdose. Frenchie, who is supposed to be following Lamplighter, runs to be with his friends. In the present day, Lamplighter explains what they're really doing at Sage Grove Center. Love Sausage's dick breaks through the window and chokes Kimiko pushes through the door and knocks out Love Sausage with her brass knuckles. Cindy approaches them, but Stormfront enters the facility and electrocutes her. Lamplighter saves the boys by lying to Stormfront about the cause of the chaos. Stormfront comes clean to Homelander about her past. She shows him a wedding photo of her and Frederick Vought in front of a Nazi flag. She had her daughter with Vought and he gave her the first successful V injection. Stormfront then tells Homelander that he will be the man to lead the new superhero army, and she tells him that she loves him with all of her heart. Later, Lamplighter meets with Victoria Newman and Grace Mallory. Victoria wants the full picture of what was happening at Sage Grove Center. Lamplighter makes a good witness, but Victoria wants more information before taking a shot at the king. Grace assures Victoria that she and Mother's Milk will come back with more information. In the meantime, Frenchie and Kimiko guard Newman. Huey gets patched up at Victoria's house, but still can't go due to his injury, so he must stay behind and watch Lamplighter. Butcher gets a call from his mother, saying his father, Sam Butcher, finally passed away. Starlight meets with her mom. Donna admits that she's been in town this whole time, desperate to reconnect with her daughter and waiting for the right moment. Annie realizes too late that Vought tricked her mother. Before she can react, a smoke bomb gets thrown through the window and knocks everyone out except Starlight. Black Noir arrives and knocks Starlight out, and she later wakes up in a locked room. Lamplighter watches a bunch of superhero-inspired porn while opening up to Huey about how he was a prodigy as a child. The two continue to open up about how worthless they feel. Huey then changes the channel and sees a news conference in which Homelander announces that Starlight was a mole in the Seven, but that she has been apprehended for being a traitor. Butcher goes to his mom's apartment and his mom reveals that his dad is actually alive. They talk, but Billy gets angry and nearly chokes out his dad. Homelander tells Stormfront he has something he wants to show her and brings her to meet Ryan. He apologizes for screwing up and introduces Ryan to Stormfront, who tells him he's so special because he is the first natural-born Supe. Grace and MM show up to see Jonah Vogelbaum to ask him about the Sage Grove Center. Mallory asks him to testify to Congress, but he refuses. Ashley walks into Maeve's room where she and two men are in her bed. Ashley is horrified because Maeve and Eleanor are America's second favorite lesbian couple, and Maeve needs to get back together with her for publicity reasons. Maeve asks Ashley to be a fucking human for once, and Ashley apologizes. After hearing that Vogelbaum refused, Butcher goes to see Vogelbaum himself. Butcher uses that and Vogelbaum's involvement in hiding Becca to blackmail Jonah to help. Jonah refuses, so Butcher threatens that his whole fucking family dies today, unless he helps him. Lamplighter and Huey sneak into the tower because Lamplighter still has access. They go to cell 42D but walk past it. Huey realizes that they're in the Seven conference room and sees Lamplighter staring at the Seven mural. A confused Huey watches as Lamplighter sets himself on fire. Huey freaks out but can do nothing as the flames have already engulfed Lamplighter. Just then, Starlight escapes and Black Noir ambushes her. He throws her through the wall into the Seven conference room, and with her stunned on the floor, he kneels over her and begins strangling her with both hands. Just as Starlight is blacking out, Maeve comes to her rescue, subduing Noir with the chokehold and stuffing an almond joy in his mouth because, as she explains to Starlight, he has a tree nut allergy. Starlight urges her to come with her, but Maeve silently refuses by shaking her head, then walks off in the other direction. Starlight continues on to the cells and is surprised to find Huey and Donna. Meanwhile, Ryan accuses his mom of being fake after Homelander and Stormfront show him that the compound is fake. Homelander says that he just needs some space and flies away with Ryan. Becca is devastated. Eagle goes on the news saying that the only thing he wanted was not to cut out his mom. The Church of the Collective revealed an embarrassing video of him and said that he was trying to spread slander about their church. At a Congress hearing, Jonah comes to testify against Vought. Heads start to explode around the room, including Jonah's and Shockwave's. Victoria and Grace Mallory look on in horror and run out of the room along with everyone else. The news cuts it out and Butcher starts fuming. Grace Mallory and Victoria Newman meet with the Secretary of Defense, who informs them that the US government has authorized the use of Compound V among military and law enforcement personnel. Huey and Starlight attempt to convince the members of The Boys to not go ahead with their plan to kill both Stormfront and the other members of the Seven. Huey and Starlight have a conversation on the way to their possible witness, where Starlight asks why Huey likes Billy Joel so much. After he refuses to say, she asks him why he saved her life while she was imprisoned in the tower, and Huey confesses that he couldn't let her get hurt. The two then arrive at Queen Maeve's house. They ask her if she will testify. She angrily replies that she does not care about fighting anymore because she's tired and it's suicide. Stan and Alistair Adana have a meeting to discuss the return of the Deep and A-Train to the Seven. Stan is agreeable with the Deep, but considers A-Train too risky because of Stormfront's racist beliefs, and A-Train is revealed to be listening to the conversation. A distraught Becca finds Butcher at the pawn shop. Kimiko, Mother's Milk, and Frenchie console Becca before Butcher goes out to dig for information. Ryan is having trouble bonding with Homelander and is clearly uncomfortable around him and Stormfront. To cheer him up, they both take him to a crowded restaurant where the two heroes are mobbed by fans. As the fans cluster around, Ryan becomes overwhelmed with the sensory overload and Homelander flies away with a crying Ryan. Meanwhile, Starlight and Huey have a touching moment that is interrupted by A-Train springing into their back seat. A-Train hands them files stolen from the Church of the Collective, detailing Stormfront's former Nazi past. He says he is doing it because he wants back into the Seven and knows he can't go back unless Stormfront is out. He tells them they're even for saving his life after his heart attacks and demands they tell no one where they got the files from. Meanwhile, Butcher and Stan negotiate a deal that Butcher will get Ryan out and then give him to Stan on the condition that Becca stays with him. Back at the hideout, Huey shows the boys the stolen files. Butcher reveals his plan to rescue Ryan, trying to convince the other members to stay uninvolved, which they all refuse. Meanwhile, while preparing sonic devices, Frenchie and Kimiko share a moment where Kimiko asks Frenchie if he enjoys dancing, to which he responds that he does. Stormfront returns to the tower, where she finds that photos of her with Hitler and other high-ranking Nazis are all over the news, and public opinion has turned entirely against her. The sonic device is then activated, causing both Homelander and Ryan to suffer in pain. As Homelander leaves to find the source of the sound, Becca and Butcher burst into the cabin and rescue Ryan. Butcher takes Becca and Ryan back to the group and tells everyone that the plan has changed and he can't separate Ryan and Becca anymore, instructing MM to take them to Mallory. Back at the cabin, Vought PMCs breach and clear the cabin, only to be interrupted by Homelander's arrival, who kills everyone. Starlight and Kimiko try to fight Stormfront, but are struggling. The boys try to get their weapons from their car, but Stormfront blows it up. Her victory is cut short when Maeve shows up and knocks her to the ground. Starlight and Kimiko then join in, beating on Stormfront until Stormfront escapes, but lands next to Becca, Butcher, and Ryan. Becca stabs her in the eye, but she grabs and pins her by the neck. She then chokes out Becca, while Butcher hopelessly tries to stop her. Ryan then uses his laser eyes for the first time, amputating all of Stormfront's limbs and burning her face off. Sadly, he also makes a deep cut on Becca's neck. Becca uses her last moments to make Butcher promise he will protect Ryan and make sure he ends up as a good person. After Becca dies, Butcher struggles with his immediate desire to kill Ryan. However, his thoughts are cut short by the arrival of Homelander. Homelander briefly attends to the still dying Stormfront, then calls out for Ryan to come near him. Instead, Ryan moves behind Butcher. Homelander taunts Butcher and moves to kill him, but he is stopped by Maeve's arrival. She shows him the recovered footage of the plane crash that Homelander and Maeve abandoned. Homelander replies that if she makes it public, he will massacre the public. Maeve tells him that's fine with her because it will mean no one will ever love him again. Shaken by this, Homelander freezes in place and Butcher leaves with Ryan. At a press conference, Stan Edgar informs a crowd that Stormfront was acting alone and was responsible for the attack on the Senate here. He also announces that the release of Compound V will be on indefinite pause. Homelander reintroduces Starlight as a member of the Seven, saying she was falsely accused. As he is speaking, a long zoom into a super close-up and discordant music is used to imply his fragile mental state. Meanwhile, Alistair Adana has a meeting with the Deep and A-Train about A-Train stealing the files and leaking them. But, rather than admonishing him, he praises A-Train before telling him he's back in the Seven. They will only take one of them because to take two would show weakness. The Deep is angry about this as he no longer has a spot and walks out saying he is leaving the Church of the Collective. Huey and Starlight have a moment at the park bench where they met, and Huey discloses that he's looking to stand on his own and try to be his own man. Starlight starts saying she understands why he's breaking up with her, but Huey responds that he's not doing that. Butcher and Ryan sit together on a riverbank. Ryan says he's scared. Butcher gives him a pendant that Becca gave him to keep him safe. Mallory then arrives to take Ryan away, and as she is leaving, she stops to mention that a new bureau has opened up called the Office of Soup Affairs that is headed up by Victoria Newman. MM goes back to his family and is welcomed by his daughter. Homelander masturbates pantless on top of the Chrysler Tower Eagles while exclaiming, "I can do whatever the fuck I want." Later, Alistair Adana and Victoria Newman have a phone call about how it was his files that led to Stormfront's past being revealed, and he mentions that he has dirt on a dozen more soups. After their call concludes, Alistair cracks open a can of Fresca just as his head suddenly explodes. Victoria is seen outside of his window, and it appears that she is the one responsible for the head explosions. She then walks into her campaign headquarters where she is met by Huey. Huey offers to work for her, saying he wants to fight Vought in the right way, and she asks him, "When can you start?" In the fictional action movie, Homelander asks Stormfront how she could do this to the world. She tells him that the Fourth Reich is in her soul and offers Homelander a chance to reign with her. He tells her no, and the Seven arrive to back him up. Homelander calls Stormfront a Nazi bitch, and they fight. Homelander and the other soups watch this scene in a theater at the world premiere of Dawn of the Seven. Starlight kisses Huey at the premiere, and they walk out together to have their photos taken. Victoria Newman is also at the premiere. Someone in the crowd screams "Nadia" in Victoria's direction. Huey sees and looks confused as to why someone would be calling Victoria Nadia. Homelander does several interviews about how he fell for the wrong woman and didn't foresee that Stormfront was a Nazi. In the bathroom, Adam and Ashley Barrett have aggressive sex. Huey walks into the bathroom right as they finish. He washes his hands and Billy Butcher shows up. He needs Huey to give him and the boys the green light on a mission they've been working on. Huey gives the okay as long as there is no torture or things getting set on fire. Butcher watches from a hidden camera as Kimiko Miyashiro and Frenchie enter a party. Meanwhile, a super, Termite, shrinks and jumps inside a man's penis to stimulate it. He unintentionally sneezes, returning him to full size and causing the man's lower half to explode. Frenchie runs in, and the Termite attacks him because Frenchie saw what happened, but Butcher catches the still miniature Termite in a bag of cocaine, which subdues him. Reluctantly, Butcher lets him live and tells Frenchie to call the Bureau. Huey and Starlight wake up and stay in bed to have sex. Huey works out and makes a smoothie before FaceTiming with his dad. Huey goes into work at the Bureau where he sees the same one from the movie premiere in the lobby, who tells him that he's waiting to see Nadia and that he and Nadia are best friends. Huey tells him she's called Victoria Newman, not Nadia. Security escorts the man out and Huey looks confused again. Butcher visits Ryan, who is staying in a protected home with Grace Mallory. They play Connect 4 and talk about Ryan's mom, Becca Butcher. Ryan admits he is still having nightmares about his dad killing him. At the studio, Homelander runs into the Deep, who gives him a big hug. Homelander seems confused that the Deep had an interview slot on the Cameron Coleman Hour before him, but the Deep explains it's for his new book, Deeper. Homelander asks again, tensely, how he got a slot before him. The Deep cowers to Homelander, telling him that he's a nobody and that should have never been scheduled earlier. Meanwhile, Mother's Milk attends his daughter Janine's birthday party, where his ex-wife Monique is there with another man, Todd. He seems to miss Monique and asks her to dinner on Friday night for co-parenting chat. She says it's not a good idea. At the same time, Stan Edgar introduces V-24 at Vought Tower to Secretary of Defense Robert Singer, explaining that it gives any person 24 temporary hours of superpowers. Stan explains his plans for turning Vought into a defense and pharmaceutical company, less focused on famous superheroes who need looking after. Stan invites both Starlight and Homelander to a meeting at Vought Tower. Stan commends Starlight on bringing a wholesome energy to Vought and the Seven, and he wants to make her co-captain of the team. A commercial for American Hero airs, where Starlight has to choose the next soup to join the Seven. The feature focuses on a soup called the Drummer Boy, now known as Supersonic. It's revealed that he dated Starlight earlier in his career and even had a top song with his band that hit #1 on the charts. Huey watches the commercial and sighs. He sees Supersonic laughing with Starlight and walks up to introduce himself. He tells Huey a story about Annie getting drunk and puking in front of a crowd of fans back when she was 19. Huey seems nervous about the two of them reconnecting, especially since they each lost their virginity together. Annie asks Huey his opinion about the co-captain proposition. She wants to be a role model for millions of girls out there who might look up to her. Huey seems hesitant about her accepting the position, thinking Homelander might murder her, but Annie ends up accepting the job and takes promotional photos with Homelander. Then, Homelander confronts A-Train about getting fatter, claiming he's just eating his feelings and making the Seven look bad. Homelander seems to be taking out his bad mood from the co-captain thing on others. While walking away, A-Train mutters an insult under his breath, causing Homelander to grab him by the throat, threatening him with his laser eyes. Queen Maeve sees it go down and texts Butcher that they need to meet. Homelander visits Stormfront in a Vought hospital room. She's in bad condition, horribly burned on her face, and has a partially amputated right arm. She consoles Homelander about the co-captain affair, first verbally, then by stimulating him sexually. Maeve gives Butcher a file about Soulja Boy. When he asks why, he reads that Soulja Boy was killed by a secret weapon, one that might even be able to kill Homelander. She tells him that Payback, the super team that Soulja Boy used to be a part of, might know what really happened to him. She gives him 3 capsules of V24. Maeve tells Butcher that this is their best chance to kill Homelander and admonishes him to not to mess it up. Later, Butcher sees Homelander land on his balcony. Homelander asks to come in and Butcher pours him a cup of tea. Homelander asks where Ryan is and threatens to tear him apart if he doesn't tell him, but eventually relents. Homelander vents his frustration about Vought and suggests a one-on-one fight to the death, to which Butcher accepts before Homelander leaves. After tucks his daughter into bed, he opens a closet that has its walls filled with newspaper clippings about Supes, including Soulja Boy. Outside the FBSA, Huey sees the same man scream "Nadia" and follow Victoria. Huey follows them to an alley and sees Victoria turn and say that she's not Nadia anymore. The man, Tony, tells Nadia that they used to be best friends and that now that she has a platform, she should tell everyone about Red River. After she spurns him, he pleads, and she ultimately says that she will and gives him a hug. His nose starts to bleed and he attacks her. She uses her superpowers to attack back, eventually exploding his head. She tears up and asks Tony why he had to come looking for her. After exploding the remainder of his body into a red rain, she calls a cleanup team on her cell phone. Huey, hidden behind a dumpster, witnesses everything and is horrified, especially when Tony's blood rains down on him. On the next day, it's Homelander's birthday, and he goes to visit Stormfront, who can seemingly barely breathe or talk. He asks her to wish him a happy birthday, but she doesn't. Huey and Starlight start to research Victoria Newman and her past as Nadia. Then Annie and Homelander go in to shoot a few clips for an upcoming live Vought TV special. Homelander shakes Supersonic's hand, telling him they might be teammates soon, especially since he used to sleep with Starlight. Butcher visits at his home to talk about Soulja Boy. He tells him about the secret weapon that might be able to actually kill Homelander. Butcher offers the chance to close the chapter with Soulja Boy once and for all for his father. Tells him that he's not going to ignore his child to go hunt Soulja Boy and sends Butcher away. He does give him a file that might be able to help him. Later on, alone at home, pulls out several newspaper clippings of Soulja Boy's violence. Frenchie and Kimiko go to a Vought theme park and Kimiko asks to go on a ride. Frenchie agrees but tells her work first, then pleasure. They go see a film about Soulja Boy's life and death. There, Crimson Countess sings a tribute to Soulja Boy before going backstage and doing a line of coke. Frenchie and Kimiko go to speak to her in her dressing room. Kimiko pins her against the wall to ask about the truth about what happened to Soulja Boy. She tells them he died a hero and pushes her way outside where she accidentally kills a bystander, sending the park visitors screaming. Starlight and Homelander continue practicing for the Vought special, airing in honor of Homelander's birthday. Starlight is told that she has to sing Happy Birthday to Homelander, with backup dancers and all. Starlight tells Homelander it's demeaning to have her sing like a sex doll, and it's a ploy by Homelander to make her look weaker. Stan tells Homelander that if she doesn't want to sing, she doesn't have to. Huey goes to visit Red River, a home for the super-abled. The woman recognizes Huey as Starlight's boyfriend and tells him it's inappropriate he's there because he works at the bureau. He lies and says that Starlight sent him because he's sterile and they want to adopt. She eagerly shows him the database of children they have at the center that they could adopt. Huey secretly plugs in a USB port to the computer to download the center's file database. When he leaves, he plugs in the USB into his computer to look up Nadia's file, which has a lot of photos of people's heads blown up. But then, he finds a video of Stan Edgar talking to Nadia as a child, offering to take care of her. Later, Victoria is at home and sees Stan read to her daughter. They talk about Tony and how the scene was cleaned up entirely. Stan assures Victoria that he's always taken care of her and will continue to do so. Butcher goes to a gun show. He speaks to Gunpowder, who is one of the speakers at the show. Butcher compliments his gun line and then asks him about his payback days as Soulja Boy's sidekick. Butcher confronts him about being abused by Soulja Boy, but Gunpowder assures him he was a great man and those were only rumors. Butcher pulls out an official complaint made by Gunpowder that would prove the abuse rumors. Butcher tells him he'll keep the complaint a secret unless Gunpowder tells him how Soulja Boy really died. Gunpowder tells Butcher that he was never sexually abused by Soulja Boy and he walks away. In the parking lot, Gunpowder shoots at Butcher. Butcher ducks and shoots back. Butcher gets hit in the leg and grazed on his cheek, but he manages to get away alive. A girl stands on a rooftop, planning to kill herself by jumping. Homelander flies up to talk her out of killing herself. On a nearby building, a news clip airs announcing that Stormfront died by suicide. Homelander sees and is shocked that she'd do that on his birthday. He rants to Chelsea about how he doesn't have a real birthday because he was made from a test tube. He tells Chelsea that maybe she should jump after all, but Chelsea tells him she doesn't want to anymore. He tells her to jump. She backs towards the ledge, she falls off the building and dies. Huey goes into the office and Victoria asks him where he's been. She also asked him who Nadia was because she heard some guy at the office was asking for her. Huey explains it was probably some guy off his meds, and Victoria seemed to sense that Huey was getting jumpy, but Annie walked up to imply that the jumpiness was because they've been having some relationship issues. Later, in the car, Huey shows Annie the files on Nadia, aka Victoria. He explains that he went to Red River by himself. Huey breaks down because he thought Victoria was his friend and he thought things were finally going his way. Annie consoles him and Huey admits that he might have accidentally signed them up to adopt a child. Meanwhile, drops Janine off at Monique's house and he asks to talk to her. He admits he's tried to stay away from Butcher and the Supes, but now that the Soulja Boy thing came up, he's having tics, compulsions, and bad thoughts again. Monique tells him to go back to Butcher because she hates that he's making himself sick over it. Butcher calls Huey and apologizes. Huey admits that Victoria is a Supe, and the past year of his life was a waste, and it's all rigged. Huey tells Butcher they have to do it his way. Later, Butcher goes to confront Gunpowder about why he's protecting Soulja Boy. Gunpowder shoots Butcher to the ground, but Butcher gets back up, seemingly unharmed, as he took the V-24. Butcher breaks Gunpowder's gun and knocks him to the ground. Gunpowder admits that Soulja Boy used to haze him and that he didn't die in an accident. Gunpowder tells him he doesn't know what actually killed him, but they were in Nicaragua in 1984, and that he didn't see shit. He was just a kid. He tells Butcher that they were working with the CIA and that Grace Mallory was his case officer. Butcher beats Gunpowder and by mistake uses laser eyes to kill him. On American Hero, A-Train shows up in his rebranded costume. He introduces Homelander and Starlight, who wish him a happy birthday. Starlight also talks about the Starlight House, a project to help homeless youth. A man in the audience screams, "Homelander, your Nazi died," and gets escorted out. Starlight tells the audience that everyone deserves a second chance, including Homelander. She tells the audience that Homelander is going to donate $10 million to the Starlight House, but he emphatically says that he is not. Homelander tells the audience that he doesn't make mistakes and that he is better than everyone in the audience. He goes on a long rant about how the audience needs him to save them. At the end, he states, "You're not the real heroes, I'm the real hero." Starlight watches the reel of Homelander's rant. Homelander watches it too, naked and on the edge of losing it, until Ashley runs in and tells him his points are up, particularly with the white male population. She explains that his fans think he's confident and unapologetic. Meanwhile, Butcher throws up from a post-V24 hangover. MM and Huey visit the boys' headquarters and consider rejoining. Since Victoria, and thereby Stan, know where Ryan is, Huey suggests they move him to a new safe house and they all decide to visit Ryan. Huey wants to go, but knows Victoria will be suspicious if he says he's sick, so he asks Kimiko to break his arm so he has a good excuse. Later, Frenchie goes to meet Cherie to give her a fake passport. She admits she messed up at work and has to flee. She tells him to go with her, but he tells her he can't. So, she kisses him and leaves. The boys go see Ryan and Grace Mallory. MM admits to Huey that he rejoined the boys because Soulja Boy killed his family. Meanwhile, Annie pulls Supersonic aside and turns on music loudly so she can tell him, without Homelander listening in, to turn down the spot on the 7 in the American Hero finale. She warns him that something is wrong with Homelander and that he will be putting his life at risk if he gets into closer contact with Homelander. A-Train's brother tracks him down outside of a medical facility where A-Train admits that he may never be able to run again because his heart might explode. And his brother tells him to go back home with him to see the family. Kimiko and Ryan play games. He asks her if she likes her powers and if she ever gets scared of them. She said she doesn't like them, and yes, she gets scared. And Ryan shares her feelings. Butcher confronts Grace about working with Soulja Boy in Nicaragua. She tells him Nicaragua is ancient history, but Butcher keeps pressing. She tells him about Operation Charlie, Reagan's pet project that was off the books. Reagan needed money for it, and they did it by trafficking cocaine into the US to raise funds for weapons. She admits the goal was to traffic it solely into minority communities and to keep it away from rich white ones. Payback made a visit to the camp in Nicaragua, where they put on a show, along with Stan Edgar. Payback is there for a trial run to fight for the military. Grace is not happy about this. Supes do not belong in the war zone, according to her. Mallory witnesses Black Noir arguing with Stan Edgar because he doesn't want to wear his mask. Stan tells him that his ratings are much higher if the public doesn't know he's black. Back at Vought, Homelander asks Starlight to reconsider her choices for the 7. His vote is to bring back in the Deep. The Deep gives Starlight a necklace to ask for forgiveness, and his wife Cassandra hugs her. Starlight tells Homelander absolutely no. She doesn't want the guy who mouth-raped her back in the 7. Starlight threatens to release the video of Homelander on the flight, and he tells her to release it, because then after that he'll have nothing left to lose. He threatens to destroy the world bit by bit if so. Later, Cassandra and the Deep hook up, and she gives him a play-by-play on what they're going to do next. While they hook up, the Deep focuses on an octopus and starts talking dirty to it. Huey asks Annie to buy them some time with Homelander so that he and the boys can try to find a weapon that could kill him. Huey admits that Butcher has been right all along and that he's tired of losing. A-Train talks to his brother and his family about his new suit and new cause, but they tease him because they think this new look is ridiculous. His brother tells him if he really wants to join the cause, he should speak up about something that just happened in the neighborhood. A soup called Blue Hawk killed a black man who supposedly mugged a white woman. A-Train's brother thinks that he needs to speak up about this. Meanwhile, Butcher struggles with the after effects of the V24, some of which is still in his system. Ryan asks him if he's sick and offers him a Triscuit cracker. Ryan notices that his heart is racing and his blood smells funny. Grace continues her story about what happened in Nicaragua. The camp got attacked, and the Supes started fighting and accidentally killing Grace's men. An explosion hit near Grace and she fell down. Later, she woke up and found Black Noir, with his face partially burned off. Crimson Countess tells Grace that the Russians killed Soulja Boy and took his body. Grace tells her that it's impossible that he died, but she sees a helicopter taking his body away. Then, Butcher tells Ryan he can't see him again because it's not safe. Ryan grabs him and won't let him go. Butcher tells him he hasn't forgotten about what Ryan did to his Becca. Ryan tears up and runs off, saying, "I hate you," to Butcher. Frenchie gets cornered by a group of thugs and has to get in the car. They bring him to Nina, who asks Frenchie where Cherie is. Nina tells Frenchie that Cherie stole from her. He tells her to back off because he works for the CIA. Meanwhile, the Deep rejoins the Seven and they celebrate with a feast. Homelander orders for everyone, a seafood feast which makes the Deep upset, and he just asks for some bread. Homelander tells him that no one can stop him now that he knows that people love him for being him. He brings the Deep a live octopus called Timothy. The Deep tells him that Timothy is his friend and he can't eat him. Cassandra texts Deep to eat the octopus. Homelander also forcefully tells him to eat Timothy, and very painfully, he does. Kimiko suggests she and Frenchie just leave and go to Marseille. Then Frenchie tells Butcher about Nina, and Butcher requests a meeting with her. He tells Frenchie they're going to Russia. Supersonic tells Annie he's joining the Seven because someone has to have her back, and he's not going to leave her to deal with Homelander alone. On American Hero, Starlight and Homelander announce that the Deep and Supersonic have been chosen. Homelander announces that he and Starlight are also an item and in love. Ashley and the team are thrilled about the announcement, knowing that the people are going to love the duo. Considering it a chance to keep a closer eye on him, Starlight agrees to the new ploy and even kisses him on camera, though scrunches her fist in anger behind her back. Stan Edgar drops by Victoria Newman's house on a whim to tell her that he wants to give Homelander a gentle reminder of who's in charge. He tells her to give Homelander some FCC fines as a reminder that he can't get away with anything. Victoria seems hesitant, but Stan assures her that she and Zoe will be safe. The boys pay a visit to little Nina to ask about a weapon that the Kremlin might know about. He covers Cherie's debt plus 100 grand for her troubles, but she still asks for Cherie back. Later, Starlight told Huey that Starlight and Homelander's announcement will air on TV that evening. She tells Huey that this plan has to work. Homelander interjects and asks, "What has to work?" She asks how he got in, and he explains that he has a key, to her surprise. He assures Huey that their love affair is strictly for the cameras, although he admits that that's how he and Queen Maeve started out, and that things got quite spicy. Huey tenses up, and Starlight threatens Homelander to back off. A-Train talks to Ashley about Blue Hawk and how Vought has a responsibility to get justice for the incident that happened. Ashley assures A-Train she cares about Black Lives Matter, insincerely. They shoot a commercial for A-Train's new Turbo Rush energy drink, promoting peace between the public and the police force. Huey calls Victoria to tell him he can't go into the office because of his broken arm, and she tells him to get better. Huey and the boys then get on a jet to go to Russia. Starlight goes to talk to Maeve and asks her if she's ever heard of a weapon called BCL Red. Maeve asks Starlight who she thinks sent them down the rabbit hole. Maeve tells Starlight her plan to try and take down Homelander, and Starlight tells her they need to team up and find more people. In Russia, the boys have to do a little job before Nina gives them the information they want. He tells Kimiko she has to do the job, but she tells Butcher she's not his gun, but he tells her otherwise. Starlight tells Supersonic that they might have to fight Homelander, and there might actually be a way to take him down. She tells him they need 4 or 5 more superheroes to get it done, and he tells her he's in. At a meeting for the Seven, A-Train brings up Blue Hawk. He explains he's been over-patrolling black neighborhoods. Cassandra texts the Deep to stick up for Homelander and tell him he needs more superheroes, not less, and to bench Blue Hawk would be a mistake, and Homelander agrees to it. A-Train is furious that Deep spoke up and kissed Homelander's ass. They fight, and Homelander finds them on the ground. He helps up Deep and talks down to A-Train. Supersonic helps A-Train up and tells him to calm down. Supersonic asks A-Train what if they could do something about Homelander, and A-Train asks him what he has in mind. Ashley informs Homelander that Victoria Newman is doing a press conference about him, and he tells her to find out what's going on. As part of Butcher's plan, Kimiko dresses up to go to a party under the name Irina. Several women are on a bed, and a man tells one of them to undress. He opens a display case of numerous dildos. Each sex toy is decorated to have the appearance of each member of the Seven. Kimiko sees her opportunity and pushes a dildo through the back of the man's head and through his mouth, killing him instantly. She proceeds to fight off the rest of his men with the other dildos as the women scream and run away. Kimiko takes a photo of the deceased man. While doing so, one of the scared women shoots her in the head. She falls down but slowly rises back again. The scared women kneel down and beg for their lives, but Kimiko tries to tell them she won't hurt them. Stan reassures Victoria at the press conference before she goes live to talk about Homelander. She seems nervous, but then proceeds to say that Homelander has come forward as a whistleblower of crimes committed by CEO of Vought, Stan Edgar. Stan is shocked and takes off his glasses. Maeve turns to Homelander and asks him what he did, and he explains that he set things straight, that Vought is a superhero company and should be led by them. Stan asks Victoria, why? She tells him she had to look out for Zoe and that all these years he was looking out for himself instead of her. Kimiko is frustrated by what Butcher made her do. She tells Frenchie she can't do this anymore. She tells him that Butcher doesn't treat any of them like people, that he is the same as little Nina. Frenchie tells her maybe it's time they leave after this job, and they dream about going to Marseille. Later, Homelander visits Victoria at her house unannounced. Homelander asks her if she wants to pop his head. He tells her she was smart to turn on Stan because he was going to do the same to her, that she isn't his daughter but his weapon. Butcher takes another dose of V as a contingency plan. Huey walks in on him and tells him he wants some too, but Butcher says no by saying, "This isn't a privilege, it's a punishment." Stan meets with Homelander as he had to take a temporary leave of absence from Vought International. Stan tells Homelander that Victoria is more like him than he realized. She plays all sides. Stan warns Homelander that he might not like his new leadership position because there is no one left to cover for him. He tells Homelander he's simply a bad product. Meanwhile, Victoria talks to her daughter Zoe about becoming a soup so that she can be strong and safe forever. She explains that she was scared too when she took it. She injects her with Compound V, and Zoe screams in pain and starts sobbing, with Victoria comforting her while tearing up. Mother's Milk and Butcher cut out the electricity at a military plant. The boys enter and have to fight off security guards and a soup hamster. They run out of ammunition, so Butcher uses his temporary soup powers to fight back. Huey fights with his superpowers too, revealing that he stole the temporary V Butcher wouldn't let him have. They open up a sealed container and find Soldier Boy. He unplugs himself from the chamber and walks out, confused. Soldier Boy sends out a fiery explosion from his chest, knocking down a wall and hurting Kimiko. However, she doesn't heal this time. He runs away and the boys rush to help Kimiko. Meanwhile, Starlight and Homelander smile for the press, and Homelander insists that they go fly somewhere together. He promises to show her the view of a lifetime. He brings her to a rooftop where he shows her a bloody, dead Supersonic. Homelander admits that A-Train told him about her and Supersonic's plot. He tells her there will be no more plotting. He wants her to be a dutiful girlfriend unless she wants that to happen to Huey. She tells him that she understands. Later, Ashley accepts the board's nomination as CEO of Vought International. Homelander leads the board meeting and asks for everyone to introduce themselves. Maureen asks Homelander a question and turns it on her, asking him if she thinks she knows better than him. She immediately apologizes and tells him how stupid she is, and Ashley tells her to leave. A news announcement claims that Supersonic was killed from a drug overdose. Annie tells Huey what really happened and says it's her fault. Huey tells Annie that Moscow was a dead end and they didn't find a super weapon. He tells her to drink a White Claw before explaining what really happened in Russia. Huey admits he enjoyed being on V24 to a horrified Annie. Queen Maeve brings Butcher more V24 doses and asks what he's gonna do with them. Butcher offers Maeve a drink and she tells him she's been sober for 4 months. Butcher answers that he had been sober for a year. She ends up drinking with him. Butcher tells Maeve that every single last one of them has got to go, referring to Soups. She agrees and they have rough sex. At the hospital, little Nina brings Kimiko chocolate limes for when she wakes up. Nina asks them how they made so much mayhem in Russia, making her lose several of her trusted contacts. She tells Frenchie he owes her a debt now. They give him a new mission, to kill Pyotr Semenov and his daughter Katerina by the end of the day. Kimiko wakes up, but she's still very weak and in pain. She looks at her wounds and smiles that she didn't heal. She tries to pick up something heavy, but she can't. She thinks Soldier Boy took away her powers. Meanwhile, Annie confronts A-Train about getting Supersonic killed. A-Train tells her he has no idea what she's talking about. Ashley commends A-Train for being a team player. She tells him she got him a meeting with Blue Hawk to make up for it. A-Train tells Blue Hawk his patrolling is excessive and potentially racist. A-Train suggests Blue Hawk makes an apology publicly, and Blue Hawk agrees. Soldier Boy arrives to New York City. He sees several posters of the Seven and seems confused. Just then, he hears a Russian radio and gets mad. He explodes, killing surrounding bystanders. The number adds up to 19 or more in total. A-Train brings Blue Hawk to a local community center to apologize. He apologizes and claims not to be racist because he doesn't see color. He only sees crime. He donated $10,000 to the community center. They confront him about killing an unarmed black man. The community gets angry and starts screaming at Blue Hawk, who insists that Super Lives Matter. Blue Hawk loses it and starts throwing people around. A-Train grabs him and tells him to stop, and then sees his brother Nathan lying on the ground with a bloody head. Butcher and Huey go to visit the Legend to talk. Asks Legend if Soldier Boy came to visit him. Legend pretends he didn't come, but convinces him to admit that he did come by to pick up his supersuit and for his girlfriend, Crimson Countess's address. Meanwhile, Homelander confronts Maeve about betraying him because he can smell Butcher all over her. She tells him he's crazy and doesn't know what he's talking about. He asks her if their love was real, and she tells him that from the start she hated him, and beyond that, pitied him. Just then, she turns around and Black Noir attacks her. Ashley informs Starlight that Maeve is at the Global Wellness Retreat in Malibu. Starlight confronts Ashley about Homelander being out of control and her needing help. Ashley whispers that she doesn't have powers, but then looks scared and tells her to make an appointment next time and to get out. At the hospital, A-Train hears the doctor say that Nathan will never walk again. Kimiko, in her hospital bed, says, "I got rhythm." She is able to speak. She kisses Frenchie and soon dreams about them dancing. He tells her he will be right back to go get a coffee. He is surprised, but happy. However, little Nina confronts him outside. Meanwhile, Crimson Countess video chats with a man on a super porn website. She is about to undress for him when she gets attacked by Butcher and the camera cuts. Butcher and tells her that Soldier Boy is on his way to see her and that he is really alive. She asks how he escaped from Russia, admitting that she knew he was alive all this time. She tells them he's going to kill her, and all of them. They tell her she's the bait and leave her while they go outside to prepare. Starlight walks up as backup, but Huey is upset, saying that he doesn't want her to get hurt trying to save him. Butcher roofied with something to knock him out without telling him. Butcher talks to Soldier Boy, who walks up and tells him the Crimson Countess is inside tied up as a gesture of faith. Butcher asks Soldier Boy if they could come to an arrangement. Inside, Soldier Boy talks to Crimson Countess and asks how much the Russians paid her. She tells him they didn't. He tells her that he loved her and that he waited for her to come save him from Russia. She tells him that she hated him, that they all did. Enraged, Soldier Boy killed the Crimson Countess and exploded her trailer. Huey explains to Annie that they need a weapon, and that Soldier Boy is that person. Annie is upset that Huey held this secret from her, but he tells her this is the only way he can save her from Homelander. Homelander is in the crime analytics room reviewing camera footage which shows Soldier Boy walking away after killing Crimson Countess. He snaps at Ashley after she suggests giving a press conference to reassure the public that everything is under control. Homelander says that announcing that the ex-face of Vought is now a supervillain would bring him down alongside the company. He storms off with Noir after ordering Deep to bury everything. Homelander opens up to Noir about his stress about Soldier Boy's recent actions. Receiving no reply, he pats Noir on the shoulder, praising him as his only friend, then leaves. Immediately after, the elevator door behind Noir opens and he rushes in. Once the door closes, to the horror of a woman present in the elevator, he takes out one of his knives and begins carving his left forearm to extract his tracking chip. He passes it to the terrified bystander before leaving the elevator. Huey, Butcher, and Soulja Boy are hiding out in the motel. Huey and Butcher give Soulja Boy food, alcohol, and Benzedrine. Butcher makes a pact with Soulja Boy. If he can provide him with the location of the remaining Payback team members, as well as help him settle in this new era, Soulja Boy will agree to help him take down Homelander. Kimiko paces around her hospital room, debating what to message Frenchie after their kiss. As she looks out the window, she gets ambushed by a Russian gangster. MM is loading a clip on a table full of various guns, grenade, and bullets, while Starlight wonders where Soulja Boy will go next. MM mentions the TNT twins, who live in Vermont. Annie asks if Butcher is also aware of their locations, to which he replies, no. She then states that Soulja Boy is bulletproof, and MM declares that the bullets aren't meant for him. Starlight empathizes with his hatred for Butcher and Huey, but convinces him not to lower himself to their level as they only have themselves as support. She then leaves after receiving a call from Ashley. Ashley watches the trailer for A-Train's upcoming movie, A-Train to Africa. As the trailer ends, A-Train enters the room demanding Ashley give Blue Hawk a harsher punishment than 12 weeks of sensibility training. As he vents about wanting justice for his paralyzed brother, Ashley snaps back at him for his hypocrisy of only caring about the Soup's misconduct when he has to suffer the consequences while she had to overwork herself to cover his crimes time and time again. Defeated, A-Train leaves the room. The Deep and Cassandra find Homelander in a hallway to let him know about Noir's disappearance. To try and stop his panic attack over Noir vanishing, Deep tells him about Soulja Boy's potential next victims, the TNT twins, and their location. Homelander sends the Deep to their place, ordering him to contact him if Soulja Boy shows up. Homelander is alone in his private quarters, and in his mirror, his reflection starts talking to him. He expresses his fears about being defeated by Soulja Boy and asks himself if taking over the company was the right call. His mirror self reassures him that he will get them out of trouble just like he always did when they were young. Homelander confesses to the real reason for rebelling against Edgar, wanting to be loved and admired. He also blames Homelander's failed relationships and his need for affection on his human side, which the reflection sees as a cancer that must be removed in order for Homelander to be free and pure. Huey tries to convince Soulja Boy to sleep, but he refuses, stating that he has slept enough. He instead proceeds to rant about the state of the modern man and the betrayal at the hands of the country and the team that he fought so hard to protect. As they discuss what happened in Midtown, Butcher returns with his knuckles covered in blood and the address of the twins. The Deep is welcomed in the home of the twins by the male brother, who expresses his sympathy for what Starlight did to him. Noticing the loud music coming from inside the house, Deep asks to be let in, thus gaining access to the 70th edition of Herogasm, hosted by the twins. Homelander is sitting nervously in a studio as the makeup artist finishes preparing the interviewer. Starlight joins them and he grabs her hand, looking for comfort. Newman also joins the interview, much to Annie's surprise. As the interviewer asks questions about the 19 dead in Midtown, Homelander cuts her off, accusing her of lying and fear-mongering. He storms off. Victoria asks Annie for a quick chat. She asks Annie about Huey's whereabouts. Annie said that he's camping with his dad, but Victoria knows she is lying. She reveals that she knows that he and Starlight know about her power. She tries to team up with Annie, offering to share her influence in exchange for Annie's. Annie refuses her offer, proclaiming that she is done playing dirty. Meanwhile, Frenchie is brought to an abandoned warehouse and bound up to a pillar. While Kimiko and Cherie sit in front of him tied to chairs, little Nina enters the room and after explaining a bit of his past whilst showing his scars and how he got them, orders him to choose who to kill between the two girls, threatening to shoot them both if he refuses. Kimiko manages to free herself of her cuffs and slits the throat of her executioner. As she falls down with his body on top of her, a second gangster empties his magazine on his comrade's corpse as Frenchie pleads with Nina. Still alive, Kimiko bites his ankle, forcing him to drop his gun, so he starts choking her. She manages to break free by breaking one of his hands. As Nina reaches for a gun, Cherie also manages to free herself and tackles Nina to the ground. Meanwhile, Kimiko is thrown around by the gangster, who finally manages to pin her down, choking her with one hand and punching the wound on her stomach open with the other. She manages to find a screwdriver, which she impales in his thigh. As he falls down screaming, she begins shanking him repeatedly well after his death, stopping only when Frenchie tells her that Nina has escaped. Meanwhile, Starlight and MM go to the T&T twins' house. On the way, Annie notices that MM has a tic. Reluctantly, he tells her that he was indirectly responsible for his grandfather's death. One night, while he was young, he noticed Soulja Boy stopping some kids and went to wake up his granddad to come see the soup. As his grandfather stood up, Soulja Boy threw a car directly at his house, squashing MM's grandfather. From then on, he developed the habit of checking the burners 3 times every night, lest Soulja Boy return to kill the rest of his family. They reach the twins' house and are greeted by Love Sausage's Love Sausage. Love Sausage asks for invitations, but he recognizes Starlight. He also sees that MM is not a soup, but he grants them entrance thanks to Starlight vouching for him. Once inside, they witness an orgy of normal people and soups who are engaging in all manners of sexual activities. As MM laments the abuse that non-super sex workers go through, Annie searches for a way to reduce casualties once Soulja Boy arrives. Meanwhile, Butcher, Huey, and Soulja Boy scout the house from the outside. While doing so, Huey asks for 3 minutes to find the twins and make sure that there won't be bystanders caught in the crossfire. Huey teleports into the middle of the party while Starlight tries to convince Blue Hawk that Soulja Boy is coming. She notices the Deep moaning behind the door as she enters and comes in full view of him having intercourse with an octopus. She proceeds to take photos of him and threatens to send them to Homelander if he doesn't tell her why he's here. Meanwhile, the twins are fighting in a corner. Their fight attracts the attention of Huey, who bumps into A-Train. They recognize each other, and Huey demands an apology for what A-Train did to Robin. A-Train apologizes, but Huey punches him anyway. A-Train recoils, astonished by Huey's newfound strength. Starlight cuts in, warning them both that Homelander is coming. Huey notices that Soulja Boy has entered the party and teleports himself and Annie away from the house. They start arguing. Back in the house, MM comes face to face with his Soulja Boy and tries to knock him out with a halophane gas grenade. However, the soup has built a resistance to the anesthetic and casually tosses the grenade away after inhaling the fumes. As MM prepares for a fistfight, Butcher comes in and directs Soulja Boy towards the twins. MM and Butcher fight. Soulja Boy finds the twins, who are still arguing, promising to spare their lives if they tell him who was the mastermind behind his betrayal. They both confess that it was Noir, but he doesn't believe them as he is too faithful to Vought to do such a thing. As the twins beg for their lives, a familiar Russian song begins playing, and soon after Soulja Boy incinerates the twins. The blast shoots through the house, causing injuries and deaths. Noticing the explosion, Annie tries to go back to the house. Huey tries to stop her, but she knocks him down. Meanwhile, in the middle of the carnage, A-Train finally confronts Blue Hawk, scared by the explosions, and while extremely angered, he knocks him to the floor before dragging away at super speed. Blue Hawk's body scrapes against the road so hard that his skull and ribcage become visible. A-Train finally stops after yet another heart attack, passing out in the middle of the road. Homelander lands in what remains of the house, stepping on a shrunken termite. Inside, Butcher wakes up and checks on MM, who is knocked out. He reunites with Soulja Boy, who once again has forgotten what happened. Homelander finds them and calls off his deal with Butcher as he considers Soulja Boy's presence cheating. He knocks out Butcher with his laser sight and starts fighting with Soulja Boy. After exchanging a few blows, Homelander pins him to the wall. As he's about to choke Soulja Boy, Butcher gets his attention before blasting with his own laser sight. A bit taken aback by Butcher's powers, Homelander starts fighting Butcher. At a stalemate, they both fire off their lasers, which gives time for Soulja Boy to get back up and drag down Homelander by his cape. He and Butcher start beating Homelander with the help of Huey. who teleports in to punch Homelander. Soldier Boy prepares to use his blast on Homelander as Butcher and Huey hold him down, but Homelander, who is insanely infuriated at this point, shakes them off and flies away. So Butcher, Soldier Boy, and Huey walk out of the house as MM and Starlight are giving medical attention to the victims. They lock eyes with one another before going their separate ways. As Homelander looks in the mirror, he notices a bruise on his face. Frenchie and Kimiko discuss their violent nature and make plans to run away, while Starlight, with the help of MM, sets up a live broadcast during which she confesses the truth behind the attacks and admits that Soldier Boy is still alive and a threat to America. She also admits Homelander's abuse towards her and Queen Maeve. She then finishes her live stream by renouncing her superhero name and quitting the Seven for good. Homelander visits Maeve in an empty cell. He asks her where the boys are hiding. She asks him if he is wearing concealer to cover up a bruise. Homelander explains how Soldier Boy is burning the V out of some The Soup's bodies and that it could happen to any one of them. She tells him he's the only one of them who cares about being a superhero. He tells her he always dreamed of having kids with Maeve and that he plans to harvest her eggs. Billy Butcher, Huey, and Soldier Boy go to track Mindstorm. Soldier Boy advises them to close their eyes if Mindstorm makes eye contact. Butcher admits he keeps feeding Soldier Boy weed to keep him chilled out from his PTSD, so he stops blowing up people. Black Noir hides out in an abandoned room of rundown Buster Beaver's pizza restaurant and pours himself a bowl of beans. Some imaginary cartoon characters start to talk to him to tell him that he can't hide from Soldier Boy. They assure him they'll get him through it. Soldier Boy hits a trap that triggers an explosion. Mindstorm makes eye contact with Butcher, but he quickly closes his eyes. Butcher passes out, trapped in an eternal nightmare according to Soldier Boy. Huey tries to wake him up, but can't. Mindstorm is the only one who can snap him out of it, so they leave him. In his nightmare, Billy's dad beats him up. After his dad leaves, Billy tells Lenny it's okay to come out. At MM's house, Frenchie gets high and plots with MMM, who tells him he's a mess. Starlight tries to clean up Kimiko's wounds. They drink whiskey together. It's Kimiko's first alcoholic drink ever. She asks Starlight what she'll do about Huey, and she admits that she tried and that he doesn't want to be saved. She asks Starlight for help about getting the permanent compound V because she wants her powers back. Starlight tells her she can't, but Kimiko asks her to read a note she wrote begging for help. The Deep surprises Cassandra in bed and tells her that he's going to be on Hannity tonight. Cassandra tells him they need to prep because it's a big deal, but he assures her that he got them this far and it will be fine. He tells her their sex life is vanilla and it's time they branch out, like introducing a new partner to spice things up. He introduces her to Ambrosius, but she tells him she doesn't want to. He tells her he needs this so they have sex all together, but Cassandra tells him she's done and can't do this. She confronts him about having sex with Ambrosius behind her back. She tells him to see how he does without her and leaves. Black Noir watches the imaginary cartoon animals act out a scene from his past. In the scene in question, Soldier Boy brutalizes Gunpowder during a sparring session. Black Noir comes in, upset because he's been turned down for the role of Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cops due to Soldier Boy saying untrue things about him to producer Don Simpson. Crimson Countess disapproves, and when Black Noir tries to speak up, Soldier Boy subjects him to a vicious beating. As Noir lies on the mat, cowering in fear, Soldier Boy outright threatens to kill him if he tries to eclipse him in fame. In another one of Butcher's memories, he gets caught selling marijuana at school. He beats up his headmaster in response. He accidentally hits his brother, but apologies. Soldier Boy and Huey encounter a priest and a nun who were brainwashed, so Soldier Boy killed them both. Homelander finds a cow in the farmhouse and milks it. As he drinks the milk, Victoria Newman finds and confronts him. She tells him to take control of the situation. He grabs her by the neck, but she tells him she wants a strictly transactional relationship with him to help each other. A-Train wakes up in the hospital. Ashley talks to him and tells him the new narrative that Soldier Boy killed Blue Hawk in front of him. She tells him Blue Hawk will live on in A-Train. His heart was implanted inside of him so he can run again. Meanwhile, Frenchie realizes that the thing that took our Soldier Boy wasn't gas, it was vapor. He tells MM they have to go back to Russia to get some. sees a photo of his daughter and Todd at the Homelander rally, and he furiously storms off. Meanwhile, Annie sneaks into Vought to get more Compound V. She sees a green liquid and realizes it's Temp V. Reading the lab notes, she's horrified to note that the scientists observe it to be lethal after 5 doses. Black Noir watches another cartoon scene. It's 1984 in Nicaragua, and he and the rest of Payback are tired of Soulja Boy's abuse. Stan Edgar presents them with an offer to get rid of Soulja Boy. Black Noir is surprised that Vought is signing off on losing their most valuable superhero, but nonetheless commits to the plan once Edgar reveals that they have plans to replace Soulja Boy with Homelander. The battle begins, and once Soulja Boy is alone, the Payback team attacks him. The TNT twins, Mindstorm and Black Noir dogpile him and begin beating him up, but Soulja Boy overpowers them. Then Black Noir tries to attack again, but Soulja Boy throws him aside, then proceeds to shove the left side of his face down on the hood of a burning car, melting it. As Black Noir screams in pain, Soulja Boy proceeds to bash him several times in the top of his head with his shield, leaving Noir with severe brain damage. Mindstorm then engages Soulja Boy, using his telepathy to scramble Soulja Boy's brain long enough for Crimson Countess to jump on him from behind and slip the Novichok bag over his mouth. As Soulja Boy passes out, she spits on him in disgust. In the present, the cartoon animals tell Black Noir that the brave thing to do right now is go back to Vought Tower and confront Soulja Boy himself. Meanwhile, confronts Todd about taking Janine to see Homelander. Monique is upset too because Todd didn't ask her. tells Todd that Homelander is lying. Todd tells that Starlight is trafficking kids and Homelander is the only one protecting the public. Gets angry and he punches Todd, which Janine witnesses. Homelander finds Starlight at Vought and tells her to recant everything she said on TV. He tells her that fame is the only thing protecting her. He warns her what will happen to Huey now that she betrayed him. She tells him he's been saying things live to her 190 million viewers, and he tells her she's not supposed to be recording while they're running lines. Soulja Boy and Huey find Mindstorm. Huey teleports Mindstorm to Butcher's body to help save him. He offers to teleport him far away if he just helps Butcher. In Butcher's mind, Lenny begs him not to leave him alone with their father. Lenny tells Butcher he can't take it anymore and he kills himself. After this, Butcher wakes up from the nightmare. Mindstorm reminds Huey of their deal, but before Huey can act on it, Soulja Boy throws his combat knife into Mindstorm's right eye, leaving him unable to react as Soulja Boy attacks, pinning Mindstorm to the ground and wrapping his head in a cloth to neutralize his power. Huey attempts to intervene, but Soulja Boy simply punches him aside. As Butcher goes to check on Huey, Soulja Boy interrogates Mindstorm. The latter admits that Vought gave Noir the green light to get rid of him and also reveals who his replacement was. Enraged and in disbelief, Soulja Boy brutally beats his former teammate to death. When Butcher asks him what he heard, Soulja Boy ignores him and continues walking as if in shock. Then, Starlight calls Butcher and tells him that Temp V is going to kill the two of them. She tells him 3 to 5 doses will kill you, and that he needs to tell Huey. Butcher hangs up on her and tells Huey that the two of them have to swing by the office to get some more. Starlight decides to save Huey, even if he doesn't want her to. She hands Kimiko a dose of Compound V, and Frenchie injects it into her, and she wriggles in pain, but all of her wounds instantly heal as she regains her powers. Meanwhile, Homelander argues with Ashley on the phone about Starlight's secret taping when he gets a second call. Brushing Ashley off, he answers to find Soulja Boy on the other end. The older super reveals that in the fall of 1980, he supplied Jonah Vogelbaum with his sperm for a genetic experiment, and the child produced from it was a boy, born in spring of 1981. Homelander is shocked and horrified to realize that Soulja Boy is his father. Meanwhile, Ryan throws a fastball and Homelander shows up to compliment him. Grace runs outside and tells him to stay away. Homelander admits that a certain congresswoman tipped Ryan's location off to him. Ryan asks Homelander if he's mad at him for what he did, and Homelander assures him that it wasn't his fault. Accidents happen and Ryan hugs him. Ashley and the Deep go to the basement where Maeve is. Ashley argues with the Deep, telling him someone is coming with a search warrant to look for Maeve. Gas floods in through the vent in Maeve's cell and Ashley mouths, "I'm sorry," as Maeve starts coughing and collapses to the ground. Maeve gets taken in a truck to get moved to another location, but she wakes up and fights her way out. Frenchie brings MM a present, a dose of Novichok, a weapon against Soulja Boy, hidden in a bottle of Starlight's Wish perfume. Frenchie gives MM some life advice, to let Janine see all of him instead of trying to hide parts from her. In present day, Vort's stock crashes after Starlight's live social media post revealed Homelander's true temper. Ashley admits what happened with Maeve. Meanwhile, Noir enters Vort headquarters to talk to Homelander. On a piece of paper he wrote, "Soulja Boy will come." They hug and Homelander tells Noir he knew he'd come back. Butcher punches Huey in a gas station restroom and locks him inside, leaving him behind intentionally, and drives with Soulja Boy to New York. A-Train tells his brother about his new heart. He tells his brother he needs him and to come back to coaching. Nate asks A-Train if he killed Blue Hawk and A-Train denies it, but Nate knows the truth. He is furious because he wanted Blue Hawk to be held accountable and yells at him to get out. Starlight picks up Huey from the gas station. She tells him that Temp V is fatal and is furious with Butcher, but Huey realizes Butcher saved his life. He and Annie talk and make up, and Annie gets a call from Maeve, who is at MM's house. Maeve tells Annie where she was this whole time. Huey tells Maeve, MM and Annie that Soulja Boy is Homelander's father and that they're headed to New York. Grace Mallory calls Butcher, but he rejects the call. Soulja Boy opens up to Butcher about his past and his father, how he became a superhero, but that his father wasn't even impressed because he took a shortcut. He tells Butcher he always wanted kids. Butcher emphasizes that Homelander isn't really his son because he didn't raise him. Meanwhile, Black Noir sharpens his knives to prepare for Soulja Boy's visit. Homelander asks what he was like, and Noir writes bad. Homelander admits that he's his father. Noir writes must kill him, but Homelander says he's not sure he wants to. He asks Noir if he knew that he had a father this whole time. Noir admits he did, and Homelander asks why he didn't tell him, and then kills Noir by punching him in the stomach and letting him bleed out. Maeve and the rest of the boys show up at Butcher's, demanding to know where Soulja Boy is. Maeve throws away the dose of Novichok and tells them that Homelander needs to die no matter what. Ashley, A-Train, and the Deep listen to Starlight's warning and talk about evacuating, but Homelander tells them not to. Homelander whispers an order to the Deep in his ear, and the Deep questions if it's treason but agrees. He tells Ashley next to take off her wig. He tells them he doesn't need any of them and that they are not his family. Later, Lamar Bishop, the potential nominee for vice president, takes a swim and the Deep kills him, and he seems to feel guilty about it. Frenchie has an idea to get more neurotoxin at a lab in New York. He agrees to go while the rest go to Vort Tower. They pack up and Huey sees one dose of Temp V and takes it with him. Butcher, Soulja Boy, and Maeve go find Homelander. Homelander tells them that he killed Noir. He tells the Soulja Boy he just wants to talk. Homelander tells Soulja Boy he is his son, his blood. He brings out Ryan and introduces Soulja Boy to his grandson. Soulja Boy tells him he wished he raised him so that he could be better. Homelander is moved by Soulja Boy's words until he declares him to be a disappointment and grabs him by the throat. Ryan lasers down Soulja Boy with his eyes but gets knocked over. Homelander tries to help him and Soulja Boy looks like he's gonna hurt Ryan, so Butcher fights him so he backs off, explaining that Ryan is his wife's son. Maeve fights Homelander and he tells her now isn't the time. Soulja Boy beats up Butcher and almost kills him until Starlight shows up and fights back. Frenchie and Kimiko break into the lab and Kimiko fights off a few security guards. Frenchie gets shot in the leg. He gets the dose of the neurotoxin and tells Kimiko to go and bring it. Huey sees Soulja Boy face off against Annie and he grabs the Temp V, but instead decides to increase the lighting in the room to give Annie more power. Annie floats up off the ground, fueled by the light, and she knocks down Soulja Boy. The boys grab him and let him inhale the neurotoxin. It doesn't knock him out. Soulja Boy, refusing to be imprisoned again, begins charging up a potentially destructive blast. Maeve, who was fighting Homelander, sees that Soulja Boy is about to explode and makes eye contact with Annie. She grabs Soulja Boy and jumps out the window with him while he explodes, saving everyone else and sacrificing herself. Ryan tells Homelander he wants to leave. Butcher pleads with Ryan and passes out, presumably from the Temp V. Remembering Queen Maeve airs on TV at the hospital where Butcher is being treated. The doctor tells him he has 12 to 18 months to live. He tells the doctor to fuck off. Opens up to Janine about his past and the truth about superheroes. He tells her about her grandfather, who spent his life fighting for justice, and after hearing everything, Janine tells he's her hero. Annie walks into an apartment and sees Maeve, who is alive and healing, but she doesn't have powers anymore thanks to Soldier Boy. She asks Annie if she should get a pirate patch. Elena walks out and Annie asks where they'll go. She tells Annie somewhere far away from Homelander. On security footage, Ashley sees and the boys helping Maeve up after the fight with Soldier Boy. She and Anika look at each other and delete the security file, protecting Maeve's secret. Grace Mallory sees Soldier Boy return to the sealed neurotoxin security tube. The Deep watches Cassandra talk about him on TV and how no one would like him if they knew the real him, and he tears up. Annie throws away her Starlight costume. Tells Annie the office rules if she's going to be working here now, as one of the boys. Meanwhile, on TV, Victoria Newman is announced as Dakota Bob's vice presidential candidate. Homelander shows up to the rally and introduces the crowd to Ryan. The crowd cheers except one guy who calls Homelander a fascist. He throws something and it hits Ryan, and Homelander kills him on the spot. Todd is at the rally and looks shocked, as does the rest of the crowd, but Todd screams in support, and then the crowd goes wild. Homelander initially looked scared, but then looks very pleased, and Ryan smiles as well. Later, a super-killing virus was made at the Godolkin University, and Victoria Newman got her hands on it. Then at the end, when all the supes from the woods are killing people in Godolkin University, Homelander shows up, and instead of supporting the good guys, he supports Sam and Kate, who caused the entire incident. So, the season 4 of The Boys starts with Victoria Newman walking outside to address the crowd. Kimiko walks in the background pretending to be a caterer, as the boys are in the back plotting something. Meanwhile, Homelander goes to the bathroom and unexpectedly finds a grey hair, which visibly bugs him. The boys see that Homelander is in the building and they're confused. Victoria seems just as surprised, not keen to be associated with a soupy on trial for murder. Ryan is there with his dad and leaves with Victoria's daughter Zoe. Butcher sees him and offers to bring him back to Grace, but Homelander overhears and intercepts. The boys infiltrate Victoria Newman's room, but her daughter encounters them and reveals that she is a soupy. She attacks and Kimiko loses her arm. They jump out of the window and Starlight intercepts to save Frenchie, but she doesn't catch Kimiko, who drops to the concrete but instantly regenerates her lost body parts. Just then, Victoria walks outside and finds Huey in the van. Huey threatens to expose her, but Victoria tells him a truce is the only option. Huey throws acid over her, and Butcher attempts to shoot her in the head, however they learn that she is invulnerable. Ashley meets with Homelander, the Deep, A-Train, and the new Black Noir to discuss the recruitment of a new member of the Seven. Among the candidates is Sister Sage, whose power is that she is the most intelligent person on the planet. A-Train recommends against recruiting her, having worked with her in Teenage Kicks, from which she was kicked out. Homelander gets annoyed with everyone else pandering to him and demands the Deep perform oral on A-Train. When the two actually prepare to do it, this just makes Homelander angrier as he is tired of everyone fawning over him and agreeing with anything he says. Butcher meets with Victoria Newman at Vought Video and he tells her he knows what's happening at Godolkin. He suggests she needs him and vice versa, and she demands files that Huey has as a show of good faith. Huey's dad has a stroke and he rushes to the hospital. Meanwhile, Annie visits the Starlight house and denies their request to dress up like Starlight to raise donations because she wants to support as Annie January. Frenchie has a seemingly romantic moment touching fingers with Colin, a guy who works at Starlight House, and Kimiko sees them from afar. Later, Colin texts Frenchie and Kimiko asks about him. She tells Frenchie she loves him, but that they are not happening, so if Colin makes him happy, he can go for it. Homelander pays a visit to Sister Sage and asks her to prove her extreme intelligence. She tells him he's aging because she can tell that his hair is being colored more often and his prostate is enlarged. He is partly impressed by her assumptions and also annoyed, but she knows he won't hurt her because he needs her for something. He asks her for advice, claiming that no matter how much he does, he's still not happy and life feels meaningless. He invites her to join the Seven, and she tells him no way, as he'd only hate having to listen to her as a young black woman, but he convinces her that he'll be open to her advice. Butcher gives Huey a hug when he hears about what happened to his dad, and also takes the chance to steal the flash drive containing the films Victoria Newman wants. Soon, the boys run another operation, tracking Todd, who goes to meet with Sister Sage, who brings him to meet Homelander. The other members of the Seven are surprised to see Sage there. Homelander thanks Todd and the other fans for their dedication and sacrifice. Homelander then hands baseball bats to A-Train, the Deep, and Black Noir to kill them. A-Train hesitates, but the others do it. Sage tells them to stay there and wait for further instructions. Homelander walks outside and MM spots him, confused by his presence since he's meant to be at his trial. Later, Homelander arrives at the courthouse for the verdict from his trial. Starlighters gather outside the courthouse, including Sage in disguise as one of them. The verdict reads, "Not guilty." Sage throws a cup of coffee on one of Homelander's supporters, which incites a riot. The boys try to intervene, and Frenchie grabs Colin to save him, and they share a passionate kiss. Homelander and Annie show up to discourage the violence, although Homelander's words are empty. Just then, a text gets sent to A-Train with instructions to run the bodies to the scene of the riot. There, MM sees that Todd is one of the dead people. The police move in and clear the crowds. As a result, it is believed that the Starlighters killed the three, and public opinion on them begins to turn. At the end of the day, Homelander celebrates with Ryan at home, and Ryan tells him he doesn't want Butcher to die. At home, the Deep opens up to Ambrosius, the octopus, about how messed up the murders were that day. Meanwhile, Huey sits at the hospital with his dad. Just then, Huey's mom shows up at the hospital, surprising Huey. Butcher talks to Becca Butcher in his head, trying to defend his actions to help Ryan. Becca insists he doesn't become like Homelander. "Be the man that I married," she says to him. As a result, he decides not to betray Huey and instead sends an obscene photo to Newman. Later, we see a movie set for the film Training A-Train, featuring A-Train before he became his famous superhero self. The director, Adam Burke, shoots an inner-city housing project where Reggie Franklin works as a runner for drug dealers. His high school coach, played by Will Ferrell, tries to convince Reggie to return to sports. After the scene ends, Burke tries to talk to A-Train about his lackluster performance. A-Train is upset by the inaccurate and offensive portrayal of his life, as his real coach was his brother, who worked as a waiter, not a drug dealer. He storms off and goes back to his trailer, where Black Noir intercepts him to open up about his guilt over the recent murders on Homelander's orders. A-Train dismisses him, calling him a brain-dead maniac, and telling him to be quiet because that's what Black Noir is supposed to be like. Huey has an emotional conversation with his mom, finding out that she and his dad had been talking for over a year, and that his dad left her power of attorney instead of Huey. Shocked, Huey storms out, intent on seeking legal guidance to challenge her for power of attorney. Meanwhile, Frenchie wakes up with Colin after an intimate night together, and Colin catches Frenchie trying to sneak away. Kimiko sits in a therapy session, still unable to speak, but she storms out after her doctor tries to ask about her family history. Later, at the boys' head office, Butcher reveals his terminal diagnosis, which surprises the group. MM, who is now the leader of the group, demands that Butcher leave the group, seeing him as a liability. Vort's PR team pitches Ryan's debut as Homeboy, but Sister Sage criticizes the idea, arguing Ryan needs to build an independent image, not just be Homelander's son. Homelander reluctantly agrees, but is visibly troubled by the idea, not wanting the spotlight to be taken away from him. The boys discuss the suspicious murders of 3 Homelander fans, and then focuses on Sister Sage and why she was even there in the first place. They hack her phone and discover she will be at a Vought event later on, and they plan to crash it. Starlight and Huey stay behind to confront A-Train and stay close to Huey's dad in the hospital. At the Vought event, the boys unexpectedly run into Butcher, who hacked MM's password to find out where they were. Inside, they see several conspiracy theorist booths. with propaganda against Starlight and claims that Stormfront is still alive. Sage attends a panel hosted by Firecracker, who admits she sells the idea of purple to the disenfranchised. Butcher and MM argue about their mission, with MM beating Butcher and telling him to leave. Kimiko sees a child trafficking booth using an image of herself, which enrages her. She chugs several beers and gets drunk. She proceeds to vandalize the booth and make a scene, but Frenchie pulls her away in time. Huey and Annie stake out A-Train, witnessing a confrontation with his brother Nathan, who exposes A-Train's fake hero stories. A-Train later provides evidence to clear Starlight's followers of the Homelander trial murders as a way to start to undo his wrongs. Ryan's staged solo save goes wrong when he accidentally kills his stunt coach Coy, but Homelander forces Ryan to smile despite his trauma. Meanwhile, the boys fall into a trap set by Sage and Firecracker. Sage instructs Firecracker and Splinter to kill the boys after realizing they were tailing her. The boys manage to kill Splinter and his clones as well as defeat Firecracker, who runs away. In Homelander's apartment, Ryan is devastated by killing Coy. Homelander tries to console him, but can't seem to understand why he's crying over the death of a fragile human. Then, at a Starlighter rally, Annie, inspired by A-Train's bravery, embraces her role as a political symbol and starts to speak up. Meanwhile, Frenchie relapses and takes drugs again. He confesses to Cherie that he's been seeing Colin, and she reminds him that they killed his family many years ago and Frenchie needs to back away. At their office, Butcher seeks MM's help to help save Ryan, but MM rejects the offer and Butcher leaves. Later, a youth choir sings at a rally led by Homelander, but Homelander is distracted and annoyed by the Starlighter crowd's presence, but he tries to maintain his cool. He introduces the Seven, including the Deep, A-Train, and Black Noir, in addition to 2 new members to the Seven Firecracker and Sister Sage. Despite her dissatisfaction with her costume, Sister Sage plays along on stage. At the rally, Homelander brings Ryan on stage. However, Ryan isn't accustomed to this public attention, and Homelander leans in to threaten Ryan to smile for the crowd, which he does obligingly. Soon, Butcher meets with CIA member Joe Kessler, who gives him a sedative for Ryan. Butcher plans to take Ryan to a safe house to steer him away from Homelander's influence. During the Seven's first press conference with the new members, Homelander doesn't like Firecracker's conspiracy theory speeches, but Sage assures him that she is their best hope at taking down Starlight. Tensions rise as Sage criticizes Homelander for putting her in the spotlight, despite their initial agreement that she would remain in the background. Meanwhile, Huey and Annie consult a lawyer to regain power of attorney over Huey's father from his mother, Daphne. However, they are told that legally there isn't much Huey can do. Frenchie visits the Starlighter organization headquarters, where he runs into Colin. However, they get interrupted by a conspiracy theorist and Firecracker fan who points a gun at a Starlighter employee, intent on freeing the trafficked kids from the non-existent basement. Frenchie intervenes and gets hurt, but Colin tends to his injuries. President-elect Robert Singer holds a meeting where he intentionally did not invite VP-elect Victoria Newman. But Newman crashes the meeting and agrees to Singer's policy of banning soups from government and military service, calling them entertainers. At the boys' office, Kimiko proposes tracking down and killing a local cell of the Shining Light trafficking group. Frenchie opposes this, but eventually he gives in and agrees to support her and go with her. Annie tries to train Huey in fighting, but he struggles. MM tells the boys his plan to flip A-Train, but Huey and Annie think it's a bad idea. At Homelander's apartment, Ryan plays a video game. He receives an online challenge from a stranger who later reveals himself to be Butcher. Butcher asks him to stop by his house so they can talk, but Ryan warns Butcher he was told to stay away. Homelander watches rally footage of Starlight while Firecracker tries to speak to him. He is so tuned into the television that he doesn't hear anything Firecracker says. Eventually, he asks her to repeat herself, and Firecracker tells Homelander that if he ever needs anything, she is there for him. Black Noir expresses some personal concerns to Ashley, seeking more direction in his role. However, everyone tells Black Noir to be quiet. Homelander dismisses Ashley from the Seven meeting, explaining that Sister Sage has taken over her duties as Vort's CEO. Ashley asks if she is being fired, but gets assured that she will still be a figurehead for Vought. But Ashley considers quitting, when Sage announces that a leak allowed Starlight to clear her followers' names. The Deep is demoted since he is in charge of the crime lab, while A-Train receives a text from his brother, Nathan, about wanting to meet. The Deep returns home to a confrontation with Ambrosius about their relationship. She wants them to run away so they can really be together, but the Deep disagrees. Meanwhile, Butcher prepares spiked cookies, using Becca's old recipe when Ryan arrives, but Ryan isn't interested in eating a cookie. They play a game of foosball, during which Butcher opens up about losing his brother Lenny. Ryan confesses to killing Coy and feeling horrible about it. Butcher tries to comfort Ryan, and he throws away the spiked cookies, making up that he put too much sugar in them. Sister Sage, Homelander, and Ashley interrogate Vought employee Annika about her connection to Starlight. Sage's calm questioning leads to Annika's confession that she has spoken to Starlight recently, but Homelander immediately kills her with his laser vision. Sage is annoyed at this, while Ashley is traumatized. Annie breaks into Firecracker's apartment to ask her why she has it out for her. She finds out that Firecracker, formerly known as Sparkler, holds a grudge against Annie for bullying her during a pageant. Annie tries to apologize, but Firecracker remains hostile. Later, a practice session for an ice skating show based on The Seven goes on in an arena where Victoria Newman is meant to show up. Huey and MM, disguised as janitors, watch from afar. Newman unexpectedly arrives early, so Huey rushes to plant a bug in the vents above. He hears Homelander, Sister Sage, and Newman discussing their plans. Homelander tells Newman she should reveal herself as a soup and should oppose Singer's new bill that bans soups from the government. Huey accidentally sweats on Homelander, leading Homelander to laser the vent above and go on a wild chase to catch and kill Huey. He kills several bystanders in the process, but Huey gets away thanks to A-Train. Later, Huey visits his mom in the hospital and asks why she left him when he was so young. She explains her struggle with postpartum depression, which led to her needing to leave because it felt like life or death. Huey seems to start to understand his mom more and seems closer to forgiving her. Meanwhile, Joe confronts Butcher about not using the sedative on Ryan, but Butcher explains that he wants to take his time convincing Ryan. Joe insists they either train him or kill him to prevent him from becoming Homelander, implying that Butcher needs to get to him quicker. The Deep finds Sister Sage on the couch, eating an Outback blooming onion and watching reality shows. She seduces him, telling him he's hot, and they start to make out. Back at home, Homelander, waiting for Ryan, asks him where he went. Ryan lied, but Homelander called him out, claiming he could smell Butcher on him. They argue, and Homelander's pent-up rage results in him smashing a window, scaring away Ryan. Homelander suffers a panic attack, which quickly turns into a mental breakdown until his fractured personalities speak to him through the shattered window. His personalities conclude he must transcend his humanity and finally cast out his desperate need for love. He receives a clear order from himself to return to the lab that created him. Later, in the lab, scientists are going about their usual work when a security guard alerts the assistant director, Marty, that the security cameras upstairs have gone blank. When the security guard calls Vought to inform them that there has been a breach, he discovers that the line is dead. As they watch the elevator slowly come down to their level, they prepare themselves for the worst. When the door opens, Homelander is revealed to be standing there with a box with a chocolate ice cream cake inside. Homelander appears to be in good spirits, although the lab staff are noticeably nervous because Homelander can be unpredictable. Homelander reminds one of the people on the staff, Frank, that he remembers as a child when Frank put him in the incinerator while playing a game outside. Homelander asks Frank to step into the incinerator while Homelander throws a paper ball into the trash. He burns and dies while Homelander laughs. Later, Homelander asks Marty to touch himself in front of his staff after recounting a memory of when Marty laughed at Homelander doing the same thing. He lasers and kills Marty. Finally, Barbara Findlay comes to the lab and tells Homelander that he always had the ability to escape the lab, but never did because Vought brought in the best psychologists to ensure that he constantly sought their approval. Homelander recognizes the truth in this. He locks Barbara in what he called the bad room and killed the entire lab staff and left Barbara in the room with their bloody bodies. Meanwhile, Huey visited his father in the hospital where he was told that his feeding tubes were to be taken out and that he would die in a matter of days. Devastated, he and Kimiko go to meet A-Train. Huey tells him they will finally be even if A-Train can steal him a vial of Compound V serum. Reluctantly, A-Train agrees and manages to secure it for him by stealing it from Homelander's apartment. After their meeting with A-Train, Kimiko and Huey get shot at by some members of the Shining Light. They manage to fight their way out, but Huey gets injured in the process. Sister Sage continues her plan to take down Starlight by getting Firecracker a 6-hour TV special where she reveals Starlight's secrets. Firecracker sets up her stage directly across from Starlight House, which enrages Annie, who can't help but listen to some of the claims Firecracker makes. Annie gets enraged when Firecracker reveals that Annie had an abortion, which was a very tough decision and time for Annie, so she loses it and attacks Firecracker, nearly beating her to death. Sage watches the TV from afar, pleased at how rattled Starlight is. While Firecracker was on stage, Butcher and Frenchie break into Firecracker's trailer, hoping to find some of her secrets. However, they get interrupted by Ezekiel, who attacks Frenchie and throws him through a window. He wraps his arms around Butcher, nearly choking him to death. However, Butcher somehow manages to cause Ezekiel to explode. Even he is surprised by these unknown powers. Later, Colin helps tend to Frenchie's wounds when Frenchie finally breaks down and confesses that he was the one who murdered Colin's family. Appalled, Colin tells Frenchie to stay away from him or he'll kill him. Meanwhile, Sister Sage asks the Deep to give her a frontal lobotomy, claiming that she finds pleasure in feeling less intelligent, even if it's only briefly. He initially hesitates, but agrees after she offers to sleep with him. After some time, Huey brings the Compound V to his father's bedside, but ultimately decides against giving it to him after some warning words from Butcher. However, his father suddenly comes back to life and breathes again. Compound V is seen entering his bloodstream, but Huey seems confused about how it got there. His mother, however, looks on calmly, and it is assumed that she took it from his jacket to give to him. Later, at Vort's fan festival, V52, the Deep and Cameron Coleman are presenting Phase 7 of the VCU, Vort Cinematic Universe. Meanwhile, Huey is at the hospital with his parents, Hugh and Daphne. Hugh appears to be in good health and is unsure if he actually had a stroke as bad as the doctor said, since he claims then he shouldn't be alive. Huey then goes to talk with his mother in private, asking her if she injected Compound V into Hugh's bloodstream. She says the Compound V fell out of Huey's coat and she assumed that's what he wanted to do. She says Huey grew up without one parent and she couldn't bear the thought of him losing another one. Meanwhile, Firecracker is on Vort News Network, bad-mouthing Starlight. Starlight is shown watching in clear distress. She goes to take a look around the now vandalized Starlight house, and horrific messages are seen all over the place. Meanwhile, the boys regroup at their headquarters and they make a new plan. Butcher announces that a soupy virus was being created at Godolkin University that could kill soups. However, Victoria Newman managed to get it, so they need to track her down. To do that, Butcher and MM go to jail where Stan Edgar, Victoria's adoptive father, is locked up. They offer him release from jail in exchange for helping them secure the supervirus. He agrees and takes them to his old farm, sure that if Victoria were to hide anything, it might be there. He's right as they discover a lab and a bunch of souped up animals. Blood is everywhere, and no one is to be found. However, Victoria promptly shows up and finds them there. The group walks around the farm, looking for clues, and for Samir, Zoe's father, and they encounter super strength and violent chickens, as well as flying murderous sheep. They try to escape by hiding in a barn, where they find Samir, who explains that a leak infected the water supply, which made all of the animals go violent. He also explained that the virus he was developing is gone except for one dose. The team, apart from Butcher, insist that they use this final dose to infect a dead person and throw it out to the animals to feed on. This way, they will get infected with the virus and die. The plan works and the animals start falling from the sky. However, amidst the chaos, Samir goes missing and all that is found is part of his leg. MM and Butcher send Stan Edgar back to jail because he didn't help them get the virus. However, Victoria kills the driver, bringing him back, and helps him in escaping. It's later revealed that Butcher cut off Samir's leg and held him captive, with the intention of handing him over to Joe Kessler so that Samir could create more of the virus to take down Homelander. Back at the hospital, Huey's father starts to forget things and discovers he is able to teleport and walk through walls. However, he kills several innocent people in the process. Hugh even turns on Daphne, forgetting their recent amicable friendship and focusing more on her leaving him. He threatens to kill her, but Huey intervenes and eventually realizes that he needs to kill his father to save him and others. Hugh seems to agree and lets Huey inject him with something so that he passes away quickly and peacefully. Homelander asks Ryan what he wants, and Ryan says to help people. Homelander suggests they help with a young PA, Bonnie, who keeps getting hit on by Adam Burke. Ryan suggests Adam apologize, and when he doesn't believe it's sincere, he suggests she slap him over and over again, while Ryan and Homelander watch on, laughing. Later that evening, at Vought Tower, the leak is revealed to be Cameron Coleman. Ashley framed him after he ruthlessly dumped her earlier on, and he gets killed by the Seven. Homelander announces to the Seven that they won't just be celebrities anymore, but rather wraithful gods. He even brings in Sam and Kate from Godolkin University, who promise to support Homelander when they are called to. Torn up by guilt, Frenchie goes to the police station to confess to several murders. Butcher wakes up Samir, demanding he create a stronger dose of the soupy virus to take down Homelander. Samir hesitates, worried that they might use this same dose against Victoria. In a final farewell to his dad, Huey scatters his father's ashes during a Made in Manhattan walking tour with Daphne, Starlight, MM, and Kimiko. He tells Daphne about Frenchie turning himself in for his past murders working for a Russian mob boss, but their conversation is interrupted by a protester shouting, "Abortion is murder," at Starlight. Huey tells the guy off and they continue their walk to avoid causing a scene after Starlight asks Huey to back down. Later, Kimiko visits Frenchie in prison, but he refuses to see her or anyone. Firecracker replaces Cameron Coleman as the anchor of Vought News Network. Her first story focuses on Jewish space lasers brainwashing people. MM watches and turns the TV off. He tries to meditate, but is interrupted by a panicked call from A-Train, who is terrified he will be found out as the leak. After A-Train gives the boys some intel about a meet and greet at Tech Knight's house, MM devises a plan to infiltrate the party, where they might uncover what Tech Knight has been discussing with Sister Sage. With Butcher missing, they turn to Webweaver, a soup, for help. Webweaver, a drug addict, agrees to help in exchange for a fix. MM reluctantly helps him, and they prepare for the mission by taking his costume. Homelander, Ryan, and the Seven attend Tech Knight's party. Tech Knight suggests a team up with Homelander, but is immediately dismissed because Homelander would never be an equal to Knight. Ashley, who goes way back with Tech Knight, shows up at the party to the surprise of Sister Sage. Huey, disguised in Webweaver's suit, sneaks into the mansion to plant bugs and gather information. Homelander mentions to Victoria a secret meeting to convince the rich elite to commit high treason. Victoria, worried but strategic, supports Homelander's plan despite its risks. Sister Sage advises her to maintain their alliance for the upcoming challenges, claiming that women in the past could only be successful by pretending around the men before cutting their throats. Victoria keeps her composure, even as Homelander reveals Stan Edgar is out of jail. Tech Knight takes Webweaver, aka Huey in his suit, on a house tour. He invites him to his secret tech cave, a BDSM dungeon, and a torture chamber. Tech is delighted to show Webweaver this room, inviting him to be his next sidekick. Huey notices Tech Knight's last sidekick chained to a wall in a gimp suit. Tech Knight misinterprets Huey's nervousness as excitement, promising more extreme activities. Huey manages to humor Tech Knight until Ashley interrupts. Tech Knight instructs Huey to clean up with sandpaper, but Huey is soon tied up and subjected to Ashley's sadistic whims. Tech Knight grows suspicious when Huey can't recall Webweaver's safe word, leading Tech to rip off his mask and find Huey inside. Soon, Annie, Kimiko, and MM sneak into the party after they lose contact with Huey. Starlight uses a syringe to subdue Firecracker, and MM holds Sage at gunpoint while Kimiko searches for Tech Knight's secret book to open the passageway into his dungeon. Sage is shot when she tries to trigger an alarm. Kimiko convinces A-Train to help MM, who collapses by bringing him to a hospital. Meanwhile, Homelander prepares for his meeting, but struggles without Sage's support as she's incapacitated by the bullet. Victoria steps in, reassuring the attendees of her control and outlining her vision. Huey, Starlight, and Kimiko find Tech Knight, and they try to torture him for information, but this only excites him because he's into BDSM. Ladio, the former sidekick, helps them access Tech Knight's computer with access to his bank accounts. Realizing hurting him physically won't get anything out of him, they start to donate his money to various causes like the Innocence Project and Black Lives Matters. Tech Knight starts to lose it and reveals his deal with Homelander and Sage about turning prisons into internment camps. Elijah, Tech Knight's assistant, strangles him, telling Huey and the others to leave. As they depart, Elijah reveals Webweaver's safe word, Zendaya. Back at Vought, Firecracker tells Homelander she ran into Starlight at Tech Knight's house but that she got away. She demonstrates her loyalty by producing breast milk after a regimen of drugs to make her body produce it. Homelander drinks the milk, finding a new maternal figure in Firecracker. Meanwhile, Butcher returns to Samir with more equipment, pressuring him to develop the virus despite the catastrophic risk. Kessler, now revealed as a figment of Butcher's imagination, insists on the necessity of the virus to finally eliminate all Supes, and Butcher struggles with accepting this. Ryan is on the set of Vaught's The Avenue V Christmas special, which shows a puppet version of A-Train talking to Ryan about Antifa before singing a song encouraging children to report their parents or anyone suspicious in their life. Ryan questions the show's intentions, but the director insists the lyrics were personally approved by Homelander. Sister Sage arrives at a meeting at Vought Tower, where Homelander and Firecracker are already there, claiming they moved the meeting up without her. Homelander dismisses Ashley and reveals he found bugs planted by Butcher at Tech Knight's mansion. He assigns Firecracker to find the true mole, explaining to Sage that while she has brains, he has wisdom. Sage is upset about being upstaged by Firecracker, so she texts the Deep for a little fun time. Meanwhile, Annie tells her mother, Donna, that she needs to hide with their extended family in Sedona, Arizona. Donna is upset, revealing she was kicked out of her Bible group because of Annie's abortion. After hanging up, Annie says she couldn't imagine bringing a child into the world they live in now. A-Train takes pictures of Sister Sage handing a file to someone on the street and sends them to MM. Butcher returns to the office, revealing he was behind Samir's disappearance. He shares that a virus strong enough to kill Homelander would cause a global pandemic, killing all Supes. Annie is horrified, claiming it's genocide, but Butcher denies wanting to go through with it. Butcher also announces that Grace Mallory has freed Frenchie from prison. MM, doubting his leadership after he collapsed at Tech Knight's house, puts Butcher back in charge. Ryan finds a gift from Butcher under Homelander's tree, a picture of Butcher and his mother Becca. Meanwhile, MM gives his ex-wife Monique $10,000 and tickets to Belize, urging her and Janine to leave the country that evening. Monique, who is concerned, asks MM to join them at the airport that night. A-Train finds Ashley watching a VNN report on Cameron Coleman's death. She tries to convince A-Train to run away to Florence with her, knowing Homelander will discover their involvement in the leak. Butcher, Annie, and Huey break into an apartment where Sage is seen giving files. They discover plans to assassinate Robert Singer on January 6th, but their search is interrupted by a woman who attacks Annie and Huey before running away. The fleeing woman steals clothes from an elderly woman and peels off her skin, morphing into a new form. A-Train visits MM, questioning why he wasn't at the apartment with Butcher, Annie, and Huey. A-Train reminds MM that leaving the country won't stop the war against Supes, claiming it will come to Belize eventually. Frenchie and Kimiko watch over Samir, who reveals Butcher's bizarre behavior, including talking to himself. Meanwhile, Homelander and Firecracker confront Webweaver, believing him to be the mole. Webweaver admits to lending his suit to Butcher, but denies leaking information. Homelander kills Webweaver, which ends up horrifying Firecracker as she got to see Homelander's true face for the first time. Frenchie tries to talk to Kimiko, who is angry about his refusal to accept help. Kimiko reveals she lost her voice after killing another girl in the Shining Light camp. They agree to free Samir after he completes the virus, despite Butcher's demands. Ambrosius confronts the Deep about his affair with Sage. In retaliation, the Deep kills Ambrosius by breaking her fish tank. He sobs while she gasps for air. Huey tries to reason with Newman to step away from Homelander's plot, but fails. Butcher and Annie return to the boys' office to find the Deep and Black Noir waiting. A fight ensues, and A-Train and MM help defeat them. A-Train rushes to Ashley's office, asking her to run away with him now that Deep and Black Noir know he's the leak, but she declines and reminds him to cut out his tracking chip. Firecracker tries to comfort Homelander after learning A-Train was the leak. Sage reveals she knew A-Train was the leak, but that it was part of her plan all along, to spread misinformation. Homelander fires Sage. Samir tries to escape by stabbing Kimiko with the virus. Frenchie amputates her leg to prevent the virus from spreading. They present the amputated leg to Butcher, but they're unsure if it's strong enough to kill a super like Homelander. During the live broadcast of the Avenue V Christmas special, Ryan calls out Vought and tells kids to love and trust their parents. Butcher watches proudly from a bar before collapsing. Annie, who is actually the shapeshifter, steals Huey's laptop after seducing him. The real Annie is chained up in a room somewhere, unable to escape. Later, Homelander finds a picture of Butcher, Becca, and their dog in Ryan's backpack, which sets him on a rampage. Homelander tries to boss Ryan around, but Ryan flees and goes to visit Butcher. As the election results are getting certified on January 6th, Homelander and Firecracker set a trap on Victoria Newman. Homelander and Victoria are doing an interview live on Firecracker's show. Homelander takes the opportunity to pressure Victoria into admitting that she's a soup, but she doesn't bite. Homelander tries to laser her head off, but it doesn't work, which reveals that she is a soup. Homelander threatens Victoria, and she tells him that he'll have to arrest half the company and country, which is a surprise to Homelander, but he goes along with it. In the aftermath, Homelander has Ashley and her assistant Ashley make a list of anyone at Vought who has any leverage over him, as they're gonna kill everyone at Vought. Speaker of the House Calhoun certifies the election results. Robert Singer is now on the way to becoming the President of the United States, with Victoria Newman as the Vice President. Homelander's cronies, led by Deep, Black Noir, and Firecracker, kill everyone at Vought who isn't completely loyal to Homelander and the Seven. Ashley flees, but she only makes it to Homelander's apartment where she shoots up Compound V and gets mutated into a soup. We don't get a look at what Ashley's transformation looks like, but it seems painful. That will be something to watch in the 5th season. Early in the episode, Annie and Huey get engaged, but it's all a sham. It's Shifter Annie who proposes to Huey, who then proposes to Shifter Annie. But immediately after, Huey starts to get suspicious about Shifter Annie's behavior. Shifter Annie visits Annie and recharges. She also has access to Annie's memories, which makes things easier in fooling Huey long enough to kill President Singer. Annie's powers aren't working because she's really struggling with who she is, which has been a big theme throughout the season. After the election results are certified and the virus isn't ready, Huey gets the laptop to share all the dirt on Victoria with the public with the hope that the outcry will cause her to resign. But Shifter Annie has deleted all of the files, and it's officially bad news for the boys. Singer asks the public for a free and fair election. He tells the public that Victoria will have him assassinated. It's not necessarily Victoria pulling the strings, but it's true. It all comes together in the bunker where they're protecting Robert Singer after Victoria is outed as a soup. Huey, Shifter Annie, and Kimiko are called to the bunker to try to protect Robert Singer. Frenchie stays behind to make the virus viable to take out Victoria. In the bunker, Huey realizes that Shifter Annie is the assassin after it slips up, but it's nearly too late. Shifter Annie makes quick work of the Secret Service agents and military personnel. The only one who slows it down is Kimiko, who is killed when Shifter Annie snaps her neck. She's not actually dead, but she's incapacitated for the moment. It gives real Annie enough time to break free of the cuffs holding her in the abandoned house. She shows up just in time to kill Shifter Annie and save Robert Singer's life. She's not totally cool with what Huey did with her impersonator, but she warms up to him later after Huey confesses his love for her, the real messy Annie. Butcher is dying as his heart is failing him. He calls Huey to apologize to him and the rest of the boys, but Butcher has a clear change of heart after Ryan kills Grace Mallory. Grace tells Ryan everything and tries to convince him to stick around and learn how to fight against Homelander. Ryan panics as he doesn't want to try to kill his dad, even though his dad is a bad guy. Grace reveals that she's going to basically kidnap Ryan if he doesn't agree. Ryan throws her against the wall, killing her. After Ryan flees, Kessler returns to Butcher and he knows what he has to do now. Victoria reaches out to Huey after the attempt to kill Singer. On a phone call, Homelander threatens her life and Zoe's life as well. She wants out and she's willing to make a deal. In exchange for Zoe's safety, Victoria will become a member of the boys for a time to help stop Vought and Homelander. It seems like a good deal, but after everything that's happened, Butcher isn't messing around. He crashes the meetup, looking as fresh and healthy as ever. Huey tries to talk him into the deal with Victoria, but Butcher isn't having any of that. He shoots tentacles right out of his chest, picks up Victoria, and he rips her in half, and Huey ends up covered in blood. Kimiko starts towards Butcher, but Huey makes them stand down. Butcher also takes the virus from Frenchie, as he knows who he is going to use it on. At the end of the episode, it looks like Homelander is going to lose, but Sage returns. Her plan, although it didn't go perfectly, worked. Robert Singer is arrested for the murder of Victoria Newman. Sage has Calhoun on the phone ready to serve Homelander, and she reveals that she's planning Phase 2. Speaker of the House Calhoun later becomes the President of the United States of America and declares martial law. Then, Homelander takes over an army of supes brought in to round up the Starlighters. All the supes are coming for the boys and the rest of Homelander's enemies. As MM, Kimiko, Frenchie, Huey, and Annie try to flee the country, they're stopped by Homelander's supes. Love Sausage knocks out MM in an airport bathroom. Cindy and other authorities arrest Huey while Annie uses her powers to fly away. Lastly, we see Sam and Kate. The Guardians of Godolkin from Gen V stop Kimiko and Frenchie. Kate uses her abilities to make Frenchie do whatever she wants while Sam overpowers Kimiko, who regains her ability to speak as she cries out to Frenchie. The final scene of the season reveals Soldier Boy, Homelander's father, is alive. Homelander and President Calhoun visit Soldier Boy, who is being kept in a chamber of sorts, keeping him alive. To be honest, I was a little worried that this season might not live up to the hype, but the final episode of Season 4 was amazing in my opinion, and I can't wait for all this shit to go down in the final season. So yeah, that's all, and thanks for watching.